Welcome, everyone, to the 2021 Economic Development Annual Fall Meeting. Our theme this year is Opening Doors. We are excited that you're here today. We welcome those of you that joined us remotely and those of you that are joining us in person. Isn't it nice? We have a packed agenda today, and we hope that you'll find today's meeting full of interesting tidbits of information. First, let me welcome our distinguished guests. All of our commissioners, Commissioner President Collins, District 1 Commissioner BJ Bowling, District 2 Commissioner Ms. Thomasina Coates, District 3 Commissioner Amanda Stewart, District 4 Commissioner Bobby Rucci, and our County Administrator Mark Belton. We also have quite the list of distinguished guests as well. Joining us, Mr. Arthur Ellis, our State Senator, our Delegate Edith Patterson, the Mayor of the Town of La Plata, Ms. Janine James. I had to pause for a second. I got her name wrong not too long ago. The Mayor of the Town of Indian Head, Mr. Brandon Paulin. The La Plata Town Council, Mr. David Jenkins, welcome. The La Plata Town Council, Jim Goldsmith, and Miss Evelyn Bryant Ward. Also joining us online is the Superintendent of Schools, Ms. Maria Navarro. And of course, we have many of our advisory board members here today. The chairwoman of the advisory board, I saw her, Ms. Ann Hooper. Ms. Darlene Breck, the owner and operator of the Southern Maryland Business Center. Ms. Christina Adams, NSWC Indian Head. Ms. Bonnie Grady, CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, and Mr. Dexter Bordis, owner and operator of DMT Development. Lastly, we'd like to acknowledge the most important people in the room, the Charles County business owners and operators. You are the reason we do what we do. I'd like to welcome our Commissioner President, Mr. Reuben Collins, for the State of the County update.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, it's an honor for me to be here today. As you may notice, our Economic Development Department has new leadership. We thank our former director, Mr. Darrell Brown, for over 6 years of service to Charles County, but we now would like to welcome Ms. Kelly Robertson Slagle to the Charles County team. She's right over here. Now, Kelly and what she does, it really precedes her coming to Charles County, and so we're proud to have her as part of our team. She's a strategic leader with more than 25 years of extensive experience in planning, organizing, and implementing economic development functions from conception to completion. With her experience and expertise in economic development, we look forward to her leadership in the coming year. As we navigated this year, while still feeling the impacts of COVID-19, the Board of County Commissioners worked diligently to continue our work toward making progress in 5 key areas: economic development, public education, the environment, quality of life, and good governance. Our county has evolved and continues to grow in population and diversity, as shown by the 2020 census data. This gives county government the unique opportunity to refocus our outlook in order to best serve the community and its changing needs. As our population has grown, the county's profile is also increasing regionally. One example of this is in the recent new endeavors in the town of Indian Head. One of these includes the U.S. Bomb Technicians Association, which now calls Charles County its home. As you know, the College of Southern Maryland's Velocity Center, a unique facility for innovation, ideation, and collaboration for base scientists and other personnel, business, academia, and the community, now resides in the town of Indian Head. Our partnerships with businesses and other entities continues to grow and foster economic development in our community. Recently, our economic development team received a Silver Rank Award from the International Economic Development Council for the College of Southern Maryland's Velocity Center and revitalization of the town of Indian Head. The project has indirectly delivered 60 full-time equivalent jobs to Indian Head and approximately 6 million in the enhanced commercial tax base of the town and county. It has also helped to reactivate another nearby blighted and underutilized property that has been vacant for nearly 10 years, actually more than 10 years. The team also received a bronze rank for their 2020 annual report. So congratulations to the team for your diligence and service. Also in the town of Indian Head, the land designations of the land around the Maryland airport will change. The county commissioners heard from residents on September 22nd of this year at a public hearing on amending the 2016 comprehensive plan to remove land from the watershed conservation district and designate it as employment and industrial land. On October the 19th, the county commissioners approved the amendment. There is also proposed legislation for a commercial real property improvement and rehabilitation tax credit that was presented to the Board of Commissioners on October the 27th. This is a new program to incentivize the rehabilitation of blighted properties. It encourages reuse and rehabilitation by providing property tax credits related to investment in current properties. We encourage you to participate in the upcoming hearing on this matter. The county commissioners also approved the zoning text amendment 21-164 business park zone at our September 28th meeting, which encourages and promotes economic vitality. It also enhances the community's appearance and fosters flexibility and innovation of design for businesses in this zone. In addition, the agricultural related uses zoning text amendment was passed earlier this year. Charles County is considered an example to other local jurisdictions based on its language. It expanded agricultural operations to encourage agribusiness growth and expansion. The county commissioners supported these changes because we continued to support and seek ways to enhance economic development here in our county. Equity is also important to the Board of Commissioners. As the 2020 census has shown us, our county is growing not only in population, but in its diversity. It is important that we continue to provide for our evolving communities. The Board of County Commissioners are very aware of and are committed to providing equitable resources and services to all of our residents. This increases the need for county government to redefine how to allocate resources, measure the outcomes, and focus on where there is most need in our community. We determine this based on feedback from our constituents, public hearings, and interactions in the county and with partnering agencies. With the direction of the county commissioners and collaboration with our economic development department, there was a disparity study completed within the county. This was really a game changer in a lot of ways for our community. And I would argue that Charles County is one of the smaller jurisdictions in the entire state and arguably in the nation to actually embark on a disparity study. It focuses on evaluating and making recommendations for procurement policies and practices. It also assessed equitable participation for minority business enterprise businesses. It is vital as our community changes, our practices and policies change with it, so that we can serve with equity and inclusion all of our residents and business partners. Today, our economic development team will go more in depth about the findings of what this means for our county's future. In conclusion, I want to thank the economic development team for your work and efforts to advance the economic development direction of Charles County. The Board of County Commissioners remain dedicated to working with partner agencies and organizations to promote equity, diversity, and inclusion in our policies and practices, and support a thriving business community. I thank you for your time today and your interest in learning on how we can open doors to a more vibrant business and economic future for Charles County. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Thank you, Commissioner Collins, for the state of the county. Before I get into our economic development update, I want to first mention our annual report. I think you all have a copy of this on the table that you're sitting at. We are going to send the link out to everyone that's online today. It's a fabulous production. As you can imagine, as the director, I've paid close attention to the report this year. The time, the detail, and the information in the report is just amazing. Today, myself, Taylor, and Lucretia will do an economic development update, but it doesn't come close to what's in that report. So please take it with you. Just last week, staff introduced the Rehabilitation Tax Credit that Commissioner Collins just spoke about. It was a grassroots effort. Typically, the commissioners ask us to come up with legislation, but in this instance, economic development took the lead and drafted the proposed criteria. Some of you may remember this legislation. We used similar legislation during the La Plata tornado event. It's meant to spur development, reuse, rehabilitation, and investment of blighted properties. It's for commercial property only. It's based on assessed value. It has a minimum of $100,000 of increased assessed value up to a max of $3 million. It's a declining percentage over 5 years, and it starts at 100%. Business owners must apply, and the tax credit doesn't apply to some taxes. But I've already spoken to the mayor of Indian Head and the mayor of La Plata, and they could join us in the tax credit if they'd like to. I warned them I'd be calling them out today. It's listed on the slide. You'll still have to pay your state taxes, town taxes, fire and rescue taxes, and your fair share excise taxes. The commissioners did vote to introduce the legislation, and we hope that you'll exercise your political voice and attend and speak at the upcoming public hearing, which is, by the way, December 1st, 2021 at 6 p.m. We hope to hear from you. It's an exciting tax credit. As Commissioner Collins mentioned, we also have embarked on the disparity study. It's a completed study. We wrapped it up this fall. It's a year's worth of work. And I want to say thank you first to all of our staff, Marcia, Lucinia, Lucretia. It was a long and worthy process. The purpose, as Commissioner Collins mentioned, was to study and review all of our procurements and the universe of potential bidders with a legally defensible program to enhance our methods. Just last week, and we wanted to make sure it was before today, just last week, we heard the formal presentation from our vendor, Griffin & Strong, a nationally recognized leader in this field. We agreed last week that we would need to work with the vendor on a strong implementation plan and public outreach, both of which are underway. I want to note that you can find the disparity study. It's very long, but chock full of information on our website. It's under downloads. The report made 9 comprehensive recommendations that touched really all levels of procurement and will impact a variety of departments within Charles County. No doubt, system-wide, we will need to make adjustments in how we procure goods and services. These changes will require training and in some cases additional staff and resources for implementation. And you can see them right there. The one recommendation that impacts the attendees of this meeting today is recommendation number 1, which is to enhance our local small business set-aside program. And we actually have with us today Ms. Lucinia Monday. She's sitting in the back, but I'd love for you to stand up. Thank you, Lucinia. She has a booth outside, and if you're interested in doing business with the county and you sell items that the county needs, please reach out personally to Lucinia Monday. She has the table set outside, and she'd be happy to register your business. Next up today is Mr. Taylor Ewell, our Chief of Business Development, to continue our economic development update. Welcome, Taylor.
Good morning, everybody. We're just going to talk about some fairly significant projects that are going on here in the county. I just want to update you. You're going to hear about some others. Not everything is included in my presentation, but there is more to come. Well, there's been a lot said about this building, and there'll be a lot more said about this building today. But I'd leave you with one qualifier: catalyst. Catalyst project. Next slide. What does a catalyst do? It does this. It turns this old vacant shopping center into a purpose-built, specialized office building. It helps attract businesses to Indian Head and Charles County. And by all accounts, is exceeding expectations. So our job in economic development and countywide is to ensure that we maintain the momentum that's been created by this. Next slide, please. Commissioner Collins brought up the airport rezoning. So what we've done is we've passed all the hurdles that we needed to get to the rezoning process. The pink area you see in this zoning map is about 558 acres, and that will be the area subject to rezoning from watershed conservation district to employment supporting uses, and will help ensure that the airport remains viable in the years and decades to come. So we look very much forward to that process, and we feel like this will give a real shot in the arm to Western Charles County and Bryan's Road when it gets going. Next slide. What you're looking at here is the site plan for Waldorf Station. Waldorf Station is a $220 million mixed-use project, and it's bisected by US 301. And on your left-hand side, you see the town center portion of Waldorf Station. Now, it's still going through the approvals process, and we don't expect it would break ground, not this year anyway. But nonetheless, the spine road that goes through that western portion, that's on southbound 301, that is Western Parkway Extension, that the county will be undertaking that, but that basically that's a town center, and that will support entertainment, new dining choices in the county, about 220,000 square feet of retail, office, apartments, and the like. So a real mixed-use town center project. And then on the eastern side, which is behind the Pinefield Shopping Center, if you know where that is, there'll be more retail, townhouses, and assisted living facility. So we hope to see that get underway sometime next year. Morgantown Power Plant, there's actually a couple things going on here. You know, the Nice Bridge is well underway, the new span of the Nice Bridge. And we had a briefing from the contractor, Skanska, a couple months ago, and they're on schedule to open the bridge in December of 2022. And so once that happens, they'll start to disassemble the old bridge, and that'll be about a 2-year process. The other big news here is that GenOn, the owner of the Morgantown coal-fired electrical generating plant, announced that they are going to shut it down and decommission it starting May 31st, or I should say June 1st of 2022. We don't know who will acquire the land right now. That's sort of under negotiation. But essentially what they'll do when they decommission is everything goes. All of the structures, all of the infrastructure, it all comes out, the land is cleared, and what the county will wind up with is about 350 acres of Potomac River waterfront and about a mile of actual waterfront there. So that's going to be a very interesting development that we'll be watching in the years to come. So that, I think, concludes my short presentation here, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Lucretia Freeman-Buster, who will talk about business development.
Thank you, Taylor. And good morning. Welcome to our fall meeting. I will be presenting on the business training program. The COVID-19 pandemic affected small businesses in Charles County. From business losing revenue to some even having to close their doors, the pandemic proved to be a life-changing event for our business owners. Many of our small and macro businesses struggle to even keep the business alive. While we all witness this worldwide economic loss, the Charles County Economic Development Department is dedicated, determined, and committed to helping Charles County businesses to successfully emerge during and after the crisis. To assist our small business owner access capital to stay alive during the heat of the crisis, the Economic Development Department mobilized a massive outreach initiative. The business development team called small businesses in the county to assess the needs, find a solution, and assist them with the necessary documentation needed to apply for grant funding. The business outreach team quickly identified the unreadiness of some of our businesses to apply and get approved for grant funding, whether it was local, state, or federal. Many of the small macro businesses did not have the financial documents in order, did not understand necessary documents needed to be operational, and were not in good standing with the state of Maryland. It was then determined that with the right type of capacity building training, our local businesses would be ready to access the necessary funding to stay alive, to grow and expand, and will flourish. Slide 1. To accomplish this task, and as part of his COVID-19 recovery effort, the Economic Development Department intends to create a robust training program called Business Growth Advantage Program, or BGAP for short, for small business owners, specifically our macro, small, minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. BGAP would be a business training curriculum. The Economic Development Department has put out a request for proposal to establish a contract with a qualified firm or consultant to develop, design, facilitate the training program. The training program will assist our businesses with education, mentorship, and business readiness. This group is the first to hear about the BGAP program, and I am very excited about the impact this program can create for our economy. Slide 2. The primary objective of the BGAP is to assist businesses in identifying growth opportunities, building capacity for growth, creating jobs, and growing our overall economy. For this reason, the training curriculum will focus on practical skills that small business owners can immediately put into action within their companies. The BGAP program is a competitive program, so business owner must apply to the program and be accepted to participate. There would be an application process. The program would be available at no cost to selected applicants. The training program is designed for macro and small business owners who have track record and a business poised for growth. The slide outlines the program requirements. We will look for participants who are passionate about growing their business, creating jobs in Charles County, and generally meeting these criteria as outlined in the slide. Slide 5, please. Upon acceptance into the program, business owners will participate in program selection, the virtual or hybrid cohort, and seed funding. The training will be a 2 to 3 hour class once a week for 6 to 8 weeks. During the final session, each participant will receive a certificate of completion and grant funding to use as working capital. Participants will be required to complete all sessions of the training to receive grant funding. The amount of grant is to be determined. Participants will also receive exclusive preliminary consultations with legal, human resources, and accounting experts, and may apply for additional funds through the Economic Development Department's Business Development Loan Fund. We anticipate starting the BGAP in the first quarter of 2022. The application period is anticipated to start by the middle of December 2021. Details regarding the application process is coming soon, and it will be posted on the Economic Development website. So have questions before applying? Schedule a call with me to discuss the program's requirements and benefits. Have questions? Send me an email to busterl@meetcharlescounty.com. Thank you. Now, I would like to introduce to you the Unite panel. When we invited our panelists to join us today, we asked them to enlighten us, but make it quick. No strangers to thinking or talking on their feet. The business leaders you will hear from today made a vision come to life in Charles County. Their stories present in Unite's 5-minute, 20-slide format communicate the passion and persistence. May the experiences help you see what is possible when you have great ideas and gleam in your eye. I would now like to call or invite our first panelist, Ms. Wanda Briscoe, to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm the owner of 9 Round Waldorf. We're located right on Crane Highway, and they asked me to come this morning to speak about our COVID experience. So I'm going to get started right here. I'm going to make it quick. March 5th, 2020, we got the notice that we had to close our doors. 5 p.m., we shut down. Members were trying to get in there for that last 30-minute workout. We got them in there. We went home, did not know what to expect. Our founders, Shannon and Heather Hudson, they're going to be coming up on the screen. They provided us with some tremendous support, support that I've never heard of a franchise ever offering to its franchisees. What we went through a couple years earlier, prior to that, they actually created a committee called the Franchise Advisory Committee. It's comprised of franchisees. And so that's how we communicated our needs and our fears to our franchise. They immediately listened to us. They heard our voices and they listened. So what they did, they provided us relief. They provided us with royalty and fee relief. They paused all of our fees for the clubs that were closed and the clubs that had state restrictions. They reduced those fees. They also paid our insurance premiums. Have you ever heard of a franchise doing that? And then they set up a repayment program for us. They provided us with legal support so that we could have communications with our landlords and be able to request rent abatement or deferment. They also were a resource for us for applying for grants and PPPs and the such and the like. We had to quickly pivot. So what our franchise did, we're an in-studio fitness facility. So they converted all of our in-studio workouts to an online platform. And with that platform, we started out with an at-home workout and Zoom format. We wanted to be able to keep our members happy, so we reduced our rates. We also needed to be able to reach out and still grab new members so that we could have revenue coming in, because reducing our rates, we lost a lot of revenue. So we went with a $30 online platform for new members, and the first day that we reopened, we gave them a free month in the facility. Our franchise owners, Shannon and Heather, are really truly engaged owners. So they did live online workouts on our social media platforms. So they went out there, put themselves out there, and worked out for our community to support us. We also got approved for through our insurance company, we got approved for outdoor workouts. And with our outdoor workouts, we were able to build a community connection. So we offered free workouts to anyone in our community. We took it to the parks. We had our members invite their friends, their family, just bring them on in and let's work out. And so that's how we used that as a marketing tool too. It was free advertising for us. And so it was a pleasure for us to be able to give that back to the community. Okay, our franchise invested a lot of money in the at-home program. So they also invested in building a brand new studio. They built the studio so that they could actually give us a quality product to give to our members in the form of on-demand workouts. So like you have Beachbody on demand, we now have 9-Round on demand. So that 9-Round on demand app is available on all the devices and everything that we have, Roku, Android. And so that is a product that we include in our memberships to our members now, so we can give them an add-on for the services that we already provide. I was behind yesterday, so today I'm ahead. The biggest part for us was the funding. We applied at the very onset of that the funding was supposed to be made available to us. We applied to everything, SBA, Maryland, and the county. We were a little disheartened at the beginning because money started to run out, and I thought it was just me, but it was my other franchisees as well. They were applying and getting denied, and we applied to Maryland for a grant. They ran out of money. They sent our information to the county. The county became our saving grace. They gave us money first. That I was able to keep my employee. I was able to open my doors. And the day we opened, July 6th, the money started to come in. We received funding from Maryland, we received it from the county, and we were able to get loans and funding PPP through the SBA. Right now, we're almost back to our pre-COVID numbers, not quite, but our franchise has actually put us through a new training process so that we can actually elevate our service level to our customers and charge a little higher premium and offering more services in the facility. When we reopened, we knew we had to change how we did business because of the pandemic. So we're a clean facility anyway. Our members, they tout how clean our gym is. So, but we upped that standard. So using the mask, we upped our cleaning standards. We limited the capacity in the studio, and we also went to an online booking because our format is basically no class time, circuits every 3 minutes. So members had to book, and they could only book once a day. And now we're in the recovery process. Our franchise has given us this new program called Operation Blackjack. And with Operation Blackjack, we are offering a new type of service to our members. Still the no class times, but it's basically a one-on-one catered to service. Once we take them through that, we sign them up at a higher rate to give us a better revenue and give them a better service. So we're here. We're here to stay, thankfully. Thank you, God. So, thanks a lot.
Next up is Sue Davis.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you today. My name is Sue Davis. I'm president and owner of S.E. Davis Construction, a full-service commercial, marine, and residential construction firm in La Plata since 2008. I entered into the construction business in the early 1980s. When my father and mentor taught me construction from the ground up, despite the male-dominated industry. He placed his trust and faith in me and allowed me to work in every aspect of construction, from municipal, commercial, residential, to the development of entire communities. We designed, developed, constructed communities that were unique, fulfilled a need, and set new industry standards at that time. The projects that you've just seen were award-winning for technologies. Although I have a vast background, I found that the most difficult task of starting a new business is a perceived lack of experience. I was fortunate to do several projects in the 1980s. This project, despite its long standing, has been there for many years, but the history has been forgotten. I was allowed to do that project, encouraged to do that project by my father. So how do you overcome disparities and open doors? Well, you need to get your foot in the door. You need to keep bidding. You need to get your name out there. My experience on this project, the Green Holly Elementary School in St. Mary's County, opened the door for my first major project under S.E. Davis construction, the addition of security entrance and administration offices and renovation of health center at Greenview Knolls Elementary School. The experience of constructing this type of facility during the operation of school opened yet another door to construct a new kindergarten wing and renovate for pre-K at Severn Elementary School in Anne Arundel County in 2012. So keep those doors open by number 2, maintaining subcontractor and supplier relationships. My masonry contractor on the Charles County Public Facilities Complex in the mid-'80s is the same mason who worked for me on the Richard Clark Senior Center and the same mason who worked on my most recent projects at Rich Hill Stabilization and Waldorf Senior Center for Charles County. My goal after year 1 was to have a core group of subcontractors that I could work with. I've grown and continued to grow these relationships. Being able to deliver a quality product with people that you know and trust is key to success for you and for your clients. Knowing your clients and their knowledge of you is also invaluable. I constructed the Calvert Marine Museum in 1989. In 2015, S.E. Davis was the low bidder on a major marine project in North Beach. A reluctant engineer was fearful about placement of the pilings. I sat with the mayor to discuss qualifications and qualities that they were seeking for their project. I brought a resume that included pictures showing the heavy timbers at the Calvert Marine Museum. At that time, he expressed, I was the commissioner during that project. That was a beautiful project and still is. That year, I reconstructed the North Beach fishing pier. So number 4, I encourage you to find a niche. Develop one or more products or methods of work that set you apart. Mine is marine construction and specialty carpentry work. The ability to conduct work in a specific area of your field will help you during the leaner times, and I think we have them coming. Number 5, be willing to reinvent yourself. Find new products and methods of doing work. The result is always rewarding. Number 6, be adaptable. Don't box yourself in. Having a plan B, C, and D will make transitions easier. When my elevated walkway contractor bailed at Indian Head Boardwalk, we were all winners with our plan B contractor. Number 6, did I say number 6? Number 7, network. You never know who will help unlock those doors to success. There are generally many keys. About 6 years or so, a group of women bankers I knew from the Women's League walked into my office and asked if I would be interested in banking with them. I said, well, get me a $250,000 line of credit and I'm in. 3 days later, I had a preliminary commitment. That opened doors for my bonding line for larger projects and changed my business. On a final note, use all the tools available and don't stop persevering. Put your best foot forward, deliver quality product, and you will open doors. Thank you.
Next up is Mark Steele with Clarity Coffee.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Steele, and with my wife, Marilyn, we own Boland's Darby Partners, which operates Clarity Coffee House under our Mancuso Foods brand, and we manage various properties under our RXBSA Properties brand. Both companies are located and operate in Indian Head, and this is our story of being in business these last 2 years. Business is about successfully responding to change and challenges. That COVID was a big challenge is an understatement, as we all know. It seemed like the door to everything was slammed on April 6, 2020, when we announced that we were closing Clarity. And all challenges hiding somewhere is an opportunity. You need to find that door of opportunity and open it. The lessons from COVID were lessons on steroids. We had zero revenue for more than 4 months in Clarity. We were closed for 153 days. COVID did give us a time to think and to revamp. COVID brought several opportunities. One was a chance for a reset of clarity. My restaurant chef background, I designed clarity with too complex of a menu, like this arugula flatbread with prosciutto. The menu was too deep and wide, and the kitchen and storage areas too small. The menu drove more complex skill sets for the employees, more inventory, more prep work, more mise en place, more labor. We used china and plates that had to be washed in the dishwasher like a restaurant, not a coffee shop, making me more hands-on than I wanted to be and could afford to be. This all yielded less profitability and less chance of being a sustainable contributing business. COVID forced us to think and gave us a chance to reinvent and tweak the Clarity concept. When we reopened Clarity on September 17th, 2020, thanks to Charles County grants, rescue funds, and without this encouragement and help, we were considering not reopening our doors. We were lucky to have Lieutenant Governor Rutherford in Indian Head that day, and he stopped by for a cup of coffee. Because of COVID, we revamped. We went to single-use serviceware, paper cups, flatware, to-go boxes. We reduced and simplified the menu. We had less inventory, less mise en place, less prep work, less labor, less waste, and a better bottom line. The results, we've been able to operate and keep our employees working, keep our doors open, even with the reduced traffic from COVID. We expanded our patio dining. COVID forced us to focus on our outdoor spaces, expand them, improve them. Now we have an intangible asset that creates a wow factor. When people discover our patio, they're amazed at the space and come back to enjoy our coffee and food with their friends. We also worked through technical challenges of an online ordering platform, and it is now an integral part of the business, and we are still working on growing it and improving it. Getting a little ahead of myself. So COVID did create business opportunities. One of our missions is to help revitalize Indian Head when the opportunity presents itself. This time last year, our landlord told us she was retiring. We had in place an agreement to purchase the building when she was ready to do that, but COVID sped up her timeline. The result being that we ended up purchasing a commercial building with 2 vacant storefronts. It was scary and caused more than a few sleepless nights. Fortunately, we had a plan, and we were working towards this plan so that we can complete this deal, even if sooner than we wanted. So what do you do when life gives you lemons? You make blueberry lemonade, of course. During the height of the pandemic, we knocked on doors. We knew a hair or nail salon that catered to the right demographics would work in our retail space in Indian Head. With our mask on, we approached a dozen nearby area salon owners about this opportunity that now is the time to get into Indian Head, which had no hair or nail salons, and that they would be positioned to ride the recovery to growth. We had quite a few doors close on us, but Kelly of Easy Nails expressed an interest. Easy Nails opened her doors in February of this year. Kelly is always saying, "I am busy, so busy." She has had to hire more employees. Easy Nail is now established in the Indian Head community, and she is positioned for growth. Pastor Rick and Pastor Jen Legacy, who this time last year started Bridge Church in Indian Head. They needed an office and space to reach out to the community. They do relationship counseling, financial training sessions, sessions for young families, childcare classes, nutritional guidance sessions, and more. We help them with remodeling our other space, making it fit their needs. Their dynamic vision, leadership, and engagement with the community now has a home in our Clarity building. All the doors of the Clarity building are open again, in spite of the hurdles of COVID. We welcome you back to our Clarity, and thanks to the resources and encouragement that we received from the county and our ability to change, to think differently, to adapt, to go out wearing our masks, we kept knocking on doors until we found the ones that opened. Thank you for listening to our story, and be safe and be successful.
Our final Ignite presenter is Wynn Briscoe with the Small Business Development Center. We'll also be doing Q&A afterwards, so I'm sure you've got some great questions.
Good morning. I'm Wynn Briscoe, and I am the director of the Southern Maryland Small Business Development Center. And to come right behind you is perfect with following the theme of today's meeting, yes, our doors are open. This is a great time and a great opportunity to embrace open doors. The Maryland Small Business Development Center, located at the College of Southern Maryland, is our host. And we have 3 offices within the 3 counties with a consultant in each office. And our headquarters location is at the College of Southern Maryland, La Plata campus. The Small Business Development Center is the Small Business Administration's resource partner, and we offer small business resources, and we are the premier provider in the Southern region with no-cost consulting and training. For 3 areas of focus, making every business successful is money, marketing, and management. Those 3 M's and those categories cover the broad base for every business to be successful. But today I'm going to talk about the 4th M, which is mindset. Mindset is something that challenged most people at the onset of the pandemic. You went into a frenzy in most cases. And so your mind and how you think about things and how you perceive things are very critical. We've heard the cliches, right? Did you pivot in the pandemic? Did you turn obstacles into opportunities? How many of you in here heard those slogans, right? They were the marketing. We had never even heard pivot so much before last year. And so we know that COVID-19 pandemic brought the uncertainty into every area and aspect of our personal and professional lives. It made us pause and really reevaluate some things within our lives. And yes, we know we were challenged to embrace uncertainty and greater innovation. This building, this community, it's innovation. It took an onset of challenges to bring forth innovation. And yes, we know this is the time to learn. But I ask you, did you take the time in the last 18 to 20 months to really reconnect with your customers and staff in new ways? Did you take this opportunity to really engage them? Did you understand that one major key to success in all areas of your life is the way you think, your mind, your perspective, how you look at things, changing your perspective, and that shift is very critical. When the pandemic hit, were you heart-centered or fear-centered? What was your response? Was it immediately panic, or did you take a pause, right? Something for you to consider. And ultimately, have you embraced the importance of being nimble as a business owner and also a community leader? I love when I'm driving up 301 and I see the car dealerships with the inflatable man. It just reminds me of how we should be in life. Will you seize and maximize the most out of every situation? There's always a lesson and there's always a positive in everything, but it's about your mindset and your perspective. So something for you to consider there. Are you more intentional with connecting to your loyal customers? For those of you that have businesses and the business owners in the room, did you make more of an intentional effort to connect with your customers during the pandemic? And also, not just your customers, but those business owners, are you more intentional with your staff? Do they really know that they're valued and appreciated, or do they feel that they're being taken for granted? A lot of those emotions surfaced during the pandemic. Your community that surrounds your business. I question, do they really know your products and services, and have those products and services that you offer really made an impact in your community? Something you want to evaluate. So just as the business doors should be open, I encourage you, so should your mind. That's going to help you really truly embrace what the next 3 to 5 years will tell as the onset of the pandemic will continue. So let us at the Small Business Development Center help you see that there are open doors to opportunities, not just today, but for years to come. We'd love for you to connect with us. However you do that, our phone, our web, our social media platforms, carrier pigeons, smoke signals. We answer them all. However you'd like to connect with us, we'd love to help you be able to embrace the new norm and to understand that, yes, your doors are open and so should your mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Wynn. How about one more big hand for our entrepreneurs and presenters? I'm Marcia Keith. I'm Deputy Director of the Economic Development Department. I do want to remind you that also at your seats is our business resource guide. And this guide is full of wonderful information about the resources that are available in our community to help entrepreneurs, to help business owners in a variety of ways. So be sure to take a look at it. We have extra copies. If you need extra copies, let us know. Share it with the entrepreneurs in your life and let them know. This is the time that we're going to ask questions. So if you have any questions for our presenters this morning, you can raise your hand. And those of you who are joining us online, you can type your questions into the Q&A portion of the app that you're using, and we will read your questions. Are there any online questions so far?
We do have one. What is the greatest new resource you discovered during the past year? Don't know if any or all of the panelists would like to address that.
Other than the funding that we received, I would say my members. When we had to close our doors and cut our rates, I had members calling us, texting us, emailing us, telling us not to change their rate, to leave their rate the same, because they wanted us to be around when everything got better. So I think my members were my biggest resource.
I would say that my biggest resource was my employees. We were an essential business and we went out there 2 days. Actually, we never had to close down, and those people were scared to death and they continued to work. Hands up and just applaud them. They were wonderful.
I'm going to go with our guests, our customers. When we were closing down, things were slowing down. The number of customers that came in and bought $100 gift cards and things like that with no intention of using them, putting a little bit of money in the bank for us while we were all trying to figure out what was happening.
Our greatest resource at the Small Business Development Center was definitely our team. Our Southern team came together like I had never seen before. And we operate as a family through the Southern region with 3 counties consulting cross-county. And we had double the caseload of businesses that came in, and we were able to service them working nights and evenings, weekends. Our staff really came through during the pandemic. So that was our greatest resource.
And I'm actually going to answer that too, because even though I wasn't one of the ones to be asked the question, I will say that some of our greatest resources are the partners that we work with in economic development, starting with Wynn at the Small Business Development Center. The services that we get from the Small Business Development Center and what they offer to our businesses is wonderful. The Tri-County Council, the Workforce Development Board, the Charles County Chamber of Commerce, the Southern Maryland Minority Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of those are in this guide. But all of our resource partners here are, I think, our greatest resource in economic development. Who in the room has a question? If you can just tell me your question, I'll repeat it into the microphone.
As a member of the state delegation, I wanted to know if the presenters or the panelists have questions in terms of how we could be more effective, responsive to some of your needs. I know we provided funding, but as it relates to other issues, our primary responsibility as the city is to listen to you, to enhance some of your goals as a county as well. So if you can think of ways in which we can address some of your concerns to make sure that you are functioning at your highest level.
Wonderful. And I'm going to repeat that. I think most of you in here might have heard that, but I'm going to repeat it for those online. And that is, our delegate, Edith Patterson, wants to know what the delegation can do to help and support businesses.
I would say that the disparity study that Charles County has done is a huge step. I was really encouraged by the goals that I saw, and We need to get that word out to people so they know that Charles County is working for us.
I want to second that and also say that I think some of the communications need to be made more available. As a small business owner, we have to go out and look a lot and research a lot. And if things could be sent to us on a regular, would be nice.
And if I can jump in, that's a wonderful point. It's one of the things that we have been working with a lot, and especially during COVID, that we keep hearing the businesses tell us we need information and we need one place to get information. We found that also with the Disparity Study. That was some of the feedback that we got, that the businesses want easy access to information. So that's something that we are working on in our department, and we are always eager to get feedback on what we can be doing better and maybe some resources for communication and communication channels that we may not be using, but you are using, you as business people are using. So let us know, and let us know how we can make information available to you. Anyone else have anything on that? Any more online questions?
Let's see, we don't have a question, but a really big thank you to all of the presenters for sharing their information. So thank you for that. And have the panelists seen concerns with their employees, with their workers, for the various businesses? For some reason, I'm not able to see. Have the panelists seen concerns with getting workers, so seeking employment, employees for the various businesses? And if so, what would be helpful for all of us to help you there? Or are you having trouble recruiting employees?
I'll say we've been lucky in our coffee shop, and we're blessed with good quality employees, and we're done okay on that one. I also, just while I'm speaking, I do want to again thank the county and the state, because it was that support that allowed us to keep our doors open.
At the moment, I have one employee, and it's my general manager. So she and I are the two that are actually running the facility. And we're not recruiting at the moment as we rebuild. Once we get to the point where we can recruit, I don't know if it's going to be how difficult it's going to be, because it's a process that we have to go through to bring on a 9-round trainer, because it's not something that can be done like quickly. Because they have to have a certain level, and we take them through a strenuous training to make sure that they can actually do the job that we require. So I don't think at the moment that I can answer the question that we're having difficulty, because we're really not looking at the moment.
When you talk about training, I do have to put in a plug for the Tri-County Council Workforce Development Board. They do have a lot of wonderful resources available for training of both employees that you're hiring and your incumbent employees. So whenever you're looking for training assistance, we can put you in touch with them. Any other questions? So the question is, the training that's available, the assistance that's available for workforce, does that include those niche functions that require licensing? And I am going to say that I hesitate answering on behalf of the Workforce Board, even though I serve on the Workforce Board. I don't know all the details, but I do believe that, yes, they can work with you to help you with those positions that do require licensing, and they absolutely help with job placement. So, yes, they can work with you, and I am happy to put you in touch with them. How are we doing on time? Okay, this is going to be the last question, Michelle tells me. And by the way, Michelle DeSoto, who is I'm not going to get her title right. I'm sorry, Michelle. But anyway, Michelle on our staff, and Sandy Dubay, who is with Platinum PR, who's our marketing consultant. They're the ones running the show up there. Matt, your question. So the question is, how optimistic are you about the future, and what single lesson have you learned that you apply to decision-making? Future decision-making.
With the changes that our franchise is taking us through, I'm quite optimistic about the future, because we have definitely seen some growth. Our growth was quick coming back with the changes that our franchise took us through. And one thing that I've learned that I'm implementing is to be tougher and say no.
I would reiterate what I spoke about earlier, but the two most important things are adaptability and flexibility, and have the ability to rethink your path and to change on a dime if you need to.
I'm optimistic for Clarity Coffee House, and that's because I'm optimistic on Indian Head. I think Clarity's positioned in the right spot. It's been a bit of a struggle, but I think we're on solid footing, and I'm pleased with the way things are coming together in Indian Head. In terms of decision making, we all said it: be flexible, be a little less rigid. I have very deep restaurant background. I was much too chefy in Clarity at the first go round, and this second reset, paper cups are just fine.
I am very optimistic about the future for this region, and I am hopeful that everyone is on board for making the shifts that they need to make so that we can excel together. And one thing that the pandemic taught me, I would say, for decision making moving forward, is the power and value of rest and self-care, and for me to honor my time as much as I honor everyone else's time.
What great advice for all of us. Thank you. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you again to our business owners. As Deborah said, you are why we do what we do. So thank you very much. And thank you to all of you online also who are tuning in. We forget that you're there, but we appreciate your participation. And I will turn it back over to Deborah.
Thank you, Marcia. Charles County Economic Development Department produces an annual report highlighting the year's economic development successes and providing a snapshot of the local economy. I hope you've had an opportunity. I see a number of you looking through this year's report. The publication includes brief descriptions of our department priorities and progress on those priorities as it relates to our 5-year strategic plan, a look at the new and expanding projects, relevant economic data, and noteworthy business activity. The annual report is created for distribution at the department's annual fall meeting, just like today, and is included thereafter in information packages sent out for the county's recruitment and attraction efforts. A PDF version is available online. For the 2020 report, which was last year's, the department focused on our local efforts of the COVID crisis. How apropos to have just heard from our businesses, reflecting on the theme of the annual meeting. While the annual report told the story of the department's activities to help businesses affected in the crisis, the main focus was on the businesses and the business activity that demonstrated innovation, resilience, strength of community during the crisis. I think we all heard that from our previous presenters. Mr. Taylor Ewell traveled to the national conference to receive our award in person, and receiving the award today is Ms. Sandy Dubay, who also assisted with the creation of our award. And I'd like to invite Commissioner Collins up for an opportunity to read his citation and present the actual award.
I'm smiling, Miss Sandy, because we've kind of appreciated, the outstanding and professional work that her company has brought to our county. And so, it's with great pride that I offer this official citation from the Board of County Commissioners. Be it hereby known to all that sincerest recognition is offered to the Economic Development Department. The Charles County Commissioners recognize the Economic Development Department as the recipient of the International Economic Development Council Bronze Rank Award for the 2020 annual report in the annual report category. Their annual report showcases the priorities, initiatives, and resulting accomplishments of the county's economic development programs. It shows how county funding is used to advance economic development in the community and demonstrates how the department shifted priorities in the face of a global emergency and supported businesses through local action while continuing to meet goals and objectives. And this official citation is signed by the entire Board of Commissioners. I'd like to present this to Sandy and
Michelle, I hope, and others. It was a team effort.
we also have this fancy bronze award here from the International Economic Development Council. And it's presented to the Charles County Economic Development Department in recognition of Charles County Economic Development's 2020 annual report.
Okay, the next award recognizes all the visionaries and risk takers who when this building, this whole idea was hatched in 2016. And it was a whole lot of dedicated people who hung in there and collaborated and made sure that this happened. And so we thought it would be a great idea to submit an application, not only for this building, but also for what's going on across the street, which is sort of a continuation of the same spirit. And so we actually had a half a dozen of these made. And we're going to call up representatives of these groups that were heavily involved in this project. Should I have Commissioner Collins read this proclamation first? So Commissioner Collins, you've got another one to go.
So we'll start where it says, the Charles County Commissioners recognize the Economic Development Department as the recipient of the International Economic Development Council Silver Rank Award in the Real Estate Redevelopment and Reuse category for the Velocity Center and the revitalization of the town of Indian Head. The cornerstone of this project was to organize a deliberate effort to facilitate a redevelopment project as a catalyst for revitalization. The Velocity Center concept was a result of an initiative proposed by the Naval Surface Warfare Center in collaboration with community stakeholders, including the Economic Development Department. And again, this official citation is signed by the entire Board of Commissioners and it's dated today.
I'm going to call up representatives of the following groups. College of Southern Maryland. Ellen, thank you. Mid-Atlantic Developers. Mayor Paulin, I see you over there. Is there anyone here from NSWC? How about the MAC? Come on up, Vince. Is John Bohannon here? Come on, John. You're on here too. John Bohannon with Cornerstone. We had a lot of interesting meetings with him when we were hatching this scheme.
We are joined today with Dr. Murphy on screen, who would like to say a few words.
Well, good morning, everybody, and I'm so glad to see all of you at the CSM Velocity Center. I want to echo what Taylor Ewell said earlier, that this place is a catalyst. It's a catalyst for all the great things that have happened and are continuing to happen in Indian Head. I refer to the Velocity Center as the stuff that dreams are made of, and I think today's event and this recognition is evidence of that. It's been a long time coming, and we are really happy to be a premier partner with so many, many fabulous other partners. So I'm happy to be able to participate today. I'll be in a hybrid format. And as we're emerging from this global pandemic, I know that Charles County stands strong, and I thank you. Thank you, everyone.
With that, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to ask the next panel to come up and take seats here at the panel table. And so Lorena Gonzalez, Randall Williams, I see you, Ann Hooper. Is Andrew Roud here? St. John's? Good, great. Okay, we're all here. And we'll reconvene in 5 minutes.
2020 looked different for all of us.
And we've had to make some changes.
We're doing everything we can to keep our customers safe, whether that's
switching to single-use service products and installing UV lights for cleaner air in our HVAC system.
Touchless check-in, sanitizing all equipment every 3 hours, and 8,000 to 10,000 foam cubes nightly.
contactless floral deliveries, adding service to self-service areas, and socially distanced seating. I'm your local florist.
Indoor family fitness amusement park owner.
A restaurant owner.
Coffee and gourmet foods house.
And we need your support.
Together, we can keep Charles County open for business.
The title of this panel is The Future of Commercial Real Estate in Charles County. But it's also going to be a little bit of the past, a lot of the present. Because if we could predict the future, we'd all be in real estate. And but that's hard to prognosticate. So we're going to just talk about sort of current situation, how we got there, and where we hope to go. So I've got a great panel here today, and I'll get to them in 1 second. But I just want to say for over a year and a half now, we've had pestilence, shutdowns, lockdowns, social distancing. There's no denying that many trends rapidly accelerated in 2020 and 2021, including the skyrocketing adoption of technology that has changed the way people work, shop, and even see their doctors. Nonetheless, during the same period, Charles County saw the opening of this facility, the beginning of the rehab of the Maryland Technology Center across the street, and that's to accommodate new businesses, more of whom are coming in and that we're talking to on a monthly basis. The opening of 2 new medical office buildings by MedStar Shaw, that's about 70,000 square feet. The expansion of UPS, the opening of Amazon's operation, which reactivated a 200,000 square foot building that had been vacant for 10 years. And in aggregate, all this activity employs an estimated 750 people. So I would say the last 2 years, new business in terms of employment has probably surpassed business expansion. And in addition to all of that, investors continue to express interest in locating operations in Charles County, as you'll see more from this panel. So there's a somewhat of a contradiction, dichotomy here. You know, we're really just 2020, I think, and most of this year has been our busiest time in economic development. So we've got a group of experts here on hand to explain the seemingly unexplainable. And I'm just going to do brief introductions. On my far right, Randall Williams. He's a local developer. He's the president of Meinhardt Properties. Those of you who go through White Plains, has got beautiful Class A buildings there on 301. And he oversees $2 million. He oversaw $2 million in development his first year, $10 million in the second year, and manages over 400,000 square feet of commercial space. Just inside of Randall is Ann Hooper. She's the vice president and manager of Hooper and Associates. It's a family-owned, full-service real estate office headquartered right here in Waldorf, Maryland, and she's also the chairwoman of our advisory board, Economic Development Advisory Board. So we're really happy to have Ann here. Andrew Roud is a regional partner with St. John's Properties. And that might not be a name that you all know, but you're going to know it in a few minutes. And they're a regional developer based in Baltimore. And they've got some interest in Charles County, as Andrew will get into. And finally, to my right, Lorena Gonzalez. Lorena, I think I've known you about a couple of years now.
Good morning.
She is the director of real estate for Kaiser Permanente. and she's been with them since 2004. And her responsibilities there are real estate and administrative occupancy planning. So what we're going to do is we're going to give each one of our panelists, and we'll start at the far right with Randall, give them an opportunity to tell you who they are, what their company does, and what their interest in Charles County is. So take it away, Randall.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Again, Randall Williams, President and CEO of Meinhardt Properties. We are a commercial real estate developer in Charles County, as well as Prince George's County, and a little teeny bit in St. Mary's County. So we kind of hit most of Southern Maryland. We haven't gotten into Calvary yet, but we do a lot of Southern Maryland business. Our most known asset is the White Plains Business Park. So this is in White Plains, where the RE/MAX 100 building is, Century 21, New Millennium, right past Billingsley Road. We have about 200,000 square foot there, another 200,000 square foot or so across Charles and Prince George's County. So we do have a fairly large amount of square foot in the area. Most of the management belongs to me. We do have another person that helps to manage some of the Prince George's County stuff. For me personally, and for our business has been very good through the pandemic. We have had some struggles as an office developer mostly, as you could imagine, with a lot of the work from home issues. But for the most part, we've come through the pandemic very well. We have actually signed quite a few new leases in the past 2 years, more than we've lost, actually. So been very good, and I think it shows the resiliency of the office market, and particularly the resiliency of the suburban office market. We're not as oversaturated as, say, a large central business district city. Might have some issues with losing more tenants. Other than that, I'm very happy to be in Charles County. I think it's a growing county. It has proven to be a great asset for us, and again, it's growing. It's more people come here constantly, and I think that the future is very bright for Charles County, and I think it's very bright for real estate in Charles County, not just office. I think there's lots of different real estate assets that will be proven to be very effective going forward. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Ann, I believe Ann has some slides.
Morning, everybody. Most of you know me as the Economic Development Advisory Board Chair, but I do real estate on the side. I work for my father, who founded Hooper & Associates in 1989. It is a second-generation family real estate firm. We do brokerage, property management. Most of you know us as appraisers, and development consulting. I have an engineering background, and I have a BS in engineering from North Carolina State University. And then I came back to real estate. Why? Because I came home. I love Charles County. And first off, I want to welcome Kelly back to Charles County. Welcome back home, Kelly. So there's not one source of commercial real estate data in Charles County. We still have the local MLS, and then we have the national data that CoStar and LoopNet provide. The MLS, you're going to see numbers slightly different and lower numbers because they don't pick up all the portfolio sales that the CoStar data does. But all the sources are reflecting the same trends. What are those trends? We had a strong 2019 going into the pandemic. We had a downturn in the pandemic, which was expected. Who didn't expect it? We were closed for 3 months. And then, similar to the local residential market, we'll say the recovery period, because I don't want to say post-pandemic yet, we started to see a strong and growing market, although slightly behind the residential market. Next slide. This is your CoStar data that does pick up portfolio sales, so you're seeing the sales volume significantly higher than the local data provided by Bright MLS. But further, I turn your attention to the pie chart. This is a historic data the prior 3 years presented by CoStar for Charles County across all commercial markets. And look who's investing here. It's not the local investors, it's national and regional firms. We have a 61% national and regional investment in Charles County, which is quite different from the 70s and 80s when we were not known. We were unknown to the national markets, and now we're here. Be proud, be strong, be Charles County. Next slide. But we can't forget about our landlords like Randall and our commercial leasing market like St. John's Properties. Landlords suffered or saw a steady trend during 2019 to 21. But guess what? Those trends have increased in 2021. We're seeing that closing lease numbers are increasing. The data's shown that 61 versus the 68 and 63 with the local closed transactions is just through October. So 2021 is going to be the strongest local leasing market that we've seen since 2019. And even more positive, we recognize that which is very positive. But first, we must recognize that landlords have faced not entirely positive trends during COVID. They faced carrying buildings during shutdowns and the COVID pandemic. They faced occupancy rates dipping over 2% in 2020, primarily in late 2020 and early 2021 coming out of the pandemic. But let's not end on a negative note, because rental rates have increased. Landlords are seeing the highest price per square foot since 2019. And guess what? Charles County is opening doors, because that's why I have St. John's Properties and Kaiser Permanente next to me. Charles County is opening doors to new opportunities. This will be discussed in later detail by Taylor, but some of the highlights are going to be business retention and expansion, agribusiness, renewable energies, the comeback of America's Main Street, flex and industrial space, redevelopment, office building revisioning, mixed-use developments, and medical. Thank you again for having me, and back to you, Taylor.
Thank you, Ann. Next up, Andrew Rabb, St. John's Properties.
Good morning. My name's Andrew Rabb with St. John Property. I'll give you a real quick introduction to the company and then the specifics of what we're here for. I am a Canadian. I'm wearing a poppy. Google it. I do play ice hockey, but I don't know Joe from Montreal. All right. So what we've been down here, I met with Sue Greer back in January of 20. So although it seems like we've been here just recently, it's actually close on 2 years now. So we did a lot of research where we were coming down. And I have to say we've been welcomed with open arms. I was prepared for sort of regulatory waterboarding. I have to admit it wasn't like that. I'd like to thank the elected officials that we met with in person and virtually, staff. Staff was great to work with, and also some of the companies that we met with so far. A little bit about St. John. It's our 50th year this year. We're based in Baltimore. We have about 22 million square feet across the United States in 8 states. You can see them here: Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Louisiana, and Maryland. People would probably argue we're one of the largest privately held companies in the Mid-Atlantic. And we've been lead developer for the last 5 years, number 1 lead developer in Maryland and top 5 in the country. Next slide, please. We do everything in-house. It's sort of a control freak thing. We go from acquisitions and land development, which is I'm part of. Then we do all of our building construction for both the site and the buildings themselves. We market and lease ourselves. All the interior space planning is done internally, same with tenant improvements, property management, and maintenance. That way we have a total control over the buildings because we don't sell them. And we're primarily engaged down here in Flex R&D. These buildings, these are just sort of representative samples. You can see sort of the wall that screens the truck court on the bottom photograph. There's like a little brick wall where you drive in. So as you go down the main property streets, you don't see the back of house stuff. The buildings are roughly 80 to 100 feet deep. They have a 10-foot clear height in the office, 16 to 18 in the warehouse. It's drive-in or dock doors. So the dock doors are where a truck would drive up at grade, or sorry, not at grade, at elevated, where the thing can roll in and out of the building. The other one, the drive-in, is just like your garage at home. You have free parking outside your door, dedicated restrooms, and no sort of public areas. And we think, jumping around a bit, but we think that's probably one of the reasons these have done so well during COVID, is there's no lobbies, sort of shared common areas. Advantages of Flex, as I just mentioned, no public factor. This is a good aerial to show you how they kind of turn into themselves in the middle of the court for the trucks to do what they do. And on the front of the buildings, they look like Class A single-story office spaces. You can't tell the difference. And also with the size, we can go anywhere from 1,200 square feet up to whole building users. And these uses include general office. Up at the top left, you see one that's fitted out for, say, a State Farm or an insurance agency or a real estate office. The other ones we have medical office, and these are within the 22 million square feet we have across the country. These are sort of representative. We have retail, which can be coffee shops or gyms, wholesale establishments, carry out, assemblage uses such as church and daycare, recreational, bouncy castles, laser tag, that kind of thing, light manufacturing and warehousing, and light industrial. And that's the presentation. Essentially what we're doing is employment placemaking. This is an employment park. We did a text amendment that we started in late June, and I have to give credit to the county, how fast and collaboratively it was done with Sue and staff. It was a sexy title, Flex Space and Permitting Flex in the Business Park Zone 21-08. Like I said, I'm not used to that. I thought I was getting punked during the whole process, and it actually worked out. And why it's important is it's predictable, it's nimble, and it's competitive. So the whole purpose of the text amendment was try to sort of codify what it is we were doing so that when we talk to tenants in the real world, and remember our company has a product throughout the whole state. So we can say to them, hey, look, we can get you in here. There's no sort of magic 8 ball and a rabbit's foot. It's all written down and we can go through it and we'll get you through the process. So that's why we did it. And to wrap up, the specific project we're looking on is on Berry Road. It will be comprised of 12 flex buildings totaling about 570,000 square feet, 2 single-story office buildings of 62,000 square feet, 2 retail strip buildings of 21,000 square feet, and 5 pads. It has a sort of stabilized cap value of somewhere between $125 and $150 million. And based on our numbers that we see daily from all of our projects, it'll be about 2,100 jobs. So obviously, we think that Charles County is open for business, and we're glad to be here. Very glad. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. I apologize. I characterized St. John's as a regional developer. Obviously, it's a national practice. And one more note on their product. They really went the extra mile. They organized tours to take the commissioners and EDD and planning and growth management to actually go see their product. And we went to 3 of their developments in 3 different counties, and it's amazing the number of complementary uses that you can get into these parks. They're very, very flexible, as the name implies. But we saw brew pubs, restaurants, we saw R&D operations, we saw light manufacturing that you really wouldn't know was there to go buy it. So office buildings, medical, you name it, they can accommodate it. So, and I don't think there's a developer in the county or a real estate broker that is not happy about the zoning text amendment to allow more uses in our business park zone. So it's a great product, and we look forward to having more in Charles County. Next up, Ms. Lorena Gonzalez with Kaiser Permanente, and that's also a national practice.
Yeah, indeed.
So take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Lorena Gonzalez, I'm the Director of Real Estate for Kaiser Permanente here in the Mid-Atlantic States region. Next slide, please. So a little bit about who we are. We are the largest integrated healthcare system that we are based in Oakland, California. We provide, we're committed to providing high quality, affordable healthcare. And we also, which is very important, we want to ensure that our communities and our members are actually improving in health, addressing disparities. And so it was very important, hearing earlier today about some of the goals for the county, which it really goes to our DNA here in our mission statement. So here is why we differ from a traditional healthcare. And I'm just going to tell a quick story. I speak fast, so I promise I will mix Spanish as I go with my fast speaking. So I was about 3 months pregnant, and I started bleeding. And so I went to my doctor, and my doctor said, you have to go and get some tests done. So I had to drive 20 minutes, get some tests done. They couldn't share the results with me because only a doctor could share the results. I had to drive back to the doctor, share the results, and I was indeed having a miscarriage. So then the doctor told me, you have to go to the hospital. I ended up having a DNC, and that was an experience that I don't wish it on anyone. It was very dramatic. Under Kaiser Permanente, being an integrated healthcare system, our members have all of the care and access under one roof or online. We have one of the largest electronic medical records. And I want to share another quick story. My son's dad recently passed away from an aggressive form of brain cancer. During his treatment, he was able to see his doctor, get MRIs, get his chemo done, get lab done, all under one roof. So the fact that he was able to do all of that under one roof removes some of those challenges, experiences that I had experienced. And from a member perspective, it brings forward that closeness with your doctor. So for those of you who are not familiar with Kaiser Permanente, that's who we are. So here for this region, this is pretty much our footprint. It's about 4 million square feet. We are planning to open up to, we have about 36 medical centers. Some of them are in the process of being developed, and with opening dates coming pretty soon. And some we have acquired, including our Charles County property here that I'm going to talk a little bit about later. And this footprint is our footprint in the Mid-Atlantic States region from Maryland, DC, and Northern Virginia. Next slide, please. So now I get the pleasure of talking about Charles County and our efforts here. Next slide, please. So in Maryland, you can see our membership here, but in Charles County specifically, we already have 16,000 members that we provide care for. In addition to that, we've started to partner with the county on how we can make differences. And we recently funded a loan for affordable housing, about $4 million to benefit affordable housing in the county, one of the important factors about taking care of our communities. So I'm very excited to hear from Andrew that from an entitlement process and from an approval process, we look forward to being able to deliver our project. Next slide, please. Because this is why we're here. We have acquired 23 acres, and we have started with the help with Sue, which I'm also very glad that she's supporting us, to begin the entitlement process for a multi-phase project. The first phase is going to be about 100,000 square feet. And when completed, we are hoping that our project will be about 240,000 square feet. This is what we consider a hub, which will have the primary care services, is going to also have specialty care, is going to have all the specialty modalities. We're going to have lab. We're also going to have pharmacy. We're going to have, in the future, advanced service centers. We're also going to have MRI and other specialty care. So for us, we're just beginning the journey of going through the process as indicated before. But it's exciting to hear today, and I'm so glad that I was able to come here in person, because Charles County, the administration, everyone that has come forward and helping us has been tremendous. We feel very welcome, but more importantly is those relationships and those partnerships that we are going to continue to foster. The small businesses, minority business firms that we want to partner in and we want to help, grow. So thank you for having us.
Very welcome. And I should point out that 2 or so years ago, that when you all first approached us, we had a meeting and your concept at the time was a 4,000 to 5,000 square foot sort of walk-in clinic. And so that evolved. And we very much appreciate your community outreach and reaching out to elected officials and our planning department and really presenting, your project and your concept. And also helping to sponsor today's event. Kaiser Permanente is sponsoring our keynote speaker. So thank you very much, Lorena. And you all answered my first question, so I've got to improvise here. But I do have a couple of spares, and then we'll get to audience questions. And then if I need to, I can go to my back pocket and pull out some questions I have there. So I'm looking for a document I have that I've hidden from myself. But anyway, the question is, Area Development Magazine. I don't know if you all read it. We do. They do an annual survey of site selectors across the nation. Now, St. John's, Kaiser Permanente, National Concerns, people like Anne and Randall are rolling out the red carpet for these firms to come in. They either lease or build a building. But they assess the factors most important to them when evaluating potential locations. Now, site selectors are people that companies hire to go find them a place to locate their business. And they may have certain criteria. They may want to be in a certain region or a certain metro. And they sort of lay that out. And then the site selectors go out and do the work. And so a lot of what happens is behind the scenes and under our radar, I can tell you. Sometimes it just the nature of real estate deals and the confidentiality associated with it. We don't know the details until decisions have been made. And the case in point is Amazon. Amazon pretty much had their property locked up before they even called us. And but I can tell you that Kaiser and St. John's came in a little bit slower and over the radar. So that was good. But anyway, back to my question. So you have these site selectors. So I'm going to start, Lorena, with you and then go down the line. What do you consider critical factors in your decision to locate in Charles County?
Thank you. We have 16,000 members that right now have to travel outside of the county to seek healthcare. And so for us, it's about accessibility, being able to be there for our members, and of course, continue to grow our membership.
I mean, most of my practice is in Prince George's County, and I think many of you are familiar with it. It's a difficult place to do business. One of the things that intrigued us with Charles is we perceive it to be just as much of a market as Prince George's is to DC, as Charles is to DC. And where it really hit me was by mistake recently. I was down at Sue's office 2 or 3 Fridays ago, and I had to be in Spring Valley in DC, downtown. And it took me up 301, and I turned left on 228, went right past our site. And, this isn't me doing it, it's Waze, and then up Indian Head Highway. And what shocked me was just how fast I got into the district. And the other thing I liked about it was, other than other routes to get into DC, is when you came over the ridge of the hill, then you saw National Harbor and the Wilson Bridge and all that. It was really pleasant. It was just a pleasant drive. So what we're hoping to do is the companies that are currently located up north of you, where people live here and have their company located up north, now we can provide a vehicle for them to relocate the company down here so they don't have to drive. That's kind of the thought behind it.
I guess it's my turn. So I don't specifically represent any one firm, but I've gotten to talk to a lot of them. So why do they like Charles County? Affordability is the number one thing. We're the last bedroom community of Washington, D.C. with redevelopment and development opportunities that are affordable. The rate on, or the return on investment is extremely high based on your entry in Charles County. So accessibility to DC, infrastructure is key. Still have to work on that point a little bit, but we're getting there. And return on investment.
Yeah, I would echo all those points. I'd say population growth is big. Charles County has continued to increase in population, and I think that will pan out into more available investment in real estate, more people to take jobs and to take space. That's one of the big reasons. Household income down here is, as we all know, is quite high. There's a lot of government jobs. I'd like to see less commuting up to DC and more work down here, but I think people like St. John's are going to be hopefully bringing that to Charles County, so we'll hopefully see less commuting. I think just overall in Charles County, the business outlook is very good. I think we're going to continue to see it grow, and I think real estate in general is going to be a very good asset to hold in Charles County.
Thank you all. I think we have an online question that we'll pose.
We do. Actually, this links back to your conversation earlier, Taylor, regarding the Waldorf station. And are there plans for affordable housing for low and mid-income households?
That they're proposing an affordable housing element to Waldorf Station. And my memory serves me, I think it's 10%. But I think in the, Charles County, affordable housing, like so many places, it's not unique in this challenge. But affordable housing does present a challenge for a lot of jurisdictions, and especially fairly prosperous jurisdictions. So there is a small affordable housing set aside, but I think as other mixed use and residential projects come online, that there'll be more encouragement to include affordable housing elements to those projects. But I think we need to work on, some sort of guiding policy on that. So this had to come. Prior to the and this is online shopping, we'll get to that. We couldn't get any retail people here. Now that teleworking has become routine and acceptable for many white-collar professional jobs, and I did mention that, there was some online doctoring, if you will, for lack of a better term. How do you view the development potential for conventional office space in the future? And Lorena, since you don't do conventional office space, I'll start down with Randall, and you can think about how you'll address that as the answer moves towards you.
Okay, so yeah, obviously that's mainly what we do is conventional office as well as medical office. I think the future is bright for office. I may be biased because that's what we do, but I think the death of the office is way overblown. I can tell you from experience since the pandemic, I said it earlier, we have brought in more new leases than we've lost. And the ones that we've lost have been smaller tenants. And truthfully, they were mostly IT type style companies that basically just wanted to move their servers to their house, didn't feel like they needed to have them in an office building anymore. So as far as, the whole telework and we're just all going to work from home, I think that is way overstated. I also think everyone's different. I know there's a lot of people that could work from home. They could wake up every day, walk downstairs, go right to their office, go get their kids, come right back home, and sleep in their bed upstairs. Some people can do that. Me personally, I can't do that. I need to get out. I need some interaction. I want to go to lunch somewhere every day rather than eating a tuna fish sandwich at home. So I just think it's overblown. I also think people work better in an office setting. I know that not everyone agrees with that, but I think the personal interaction, how many people have been on Zoom meetings And I know everybody thinks we're paying attention, but all you're doing is hitting that mute button and stopping that video, and you're going to do something else, right? I mean, this is just the case. You need that human interaction. So as far as I'm concerned, the death of the office is way overstated. Is that good enough, Taylor?
Works for me.
All right.
I may have a slightly different opinion than Randall. It is overstated, but I think there has to be a pivot. That magic word that we all learned during COVID. The standard office users are taking less space because they're hoteling their employees. So you're not having as much office space absorbed by one lease. So you've got to think about that. The other side of it is that you're seeing retail users taking first floor office spaces, your spas, your nail salons, your hair salons, your lab cores, because they can still they've got built-in walk-in traffic from the second, third, or fourth floors, but they can still have the convenience of retail at a lower price. So from my perspective, I don't think office is dead, but I definitely think it's been the hardest hit in Charles County. We have not seen the hit that the metropolitan office market has seen, but we have definitely experienced a slowdown in absorption of office space.
We're somewhere in the middle. We do a lot of flex. So as I described during the slides, you see the people drive straight into the front, which looks like a Class A, single-story office building, but behind it, you can demise it any way you want. You can have industrial high bay in it or 100% office. I know, talking with Ed St. John, the chairman of our company, he was telling me the reason he thinks our offices are doing so well, and we did take a lot of the people with the county up to see Maple Lawn in Howard County, which is by Johns Hopkins Applied Physics. And what we tend to do is build a 5-story office building, 150,000 feet, populate it, and once it's 50% leased, do the next one speculatively. They're all full, and we don't quite understand it. Ed thinks he's got a reason why. He said office trends used to be about 300 square feet per employee years ago. And then to save money and costs, everything was being pushed down to about 100 square feet per employee. Well, now with COVID, it's ratcheted back up to 300. So we just can't seem to build them fast enough. But that's the experience we're having. It is what it is. That's what we're seeing. But that's kind of the kind of thought we have.
So my background, of course, is a little different, right? I'm a tenant and I'm an end user. So how has it impacted us is we have about 600,000 square feet of administrative space that we own and we lease in this region. And some of it, as part of my area of responsibility, is administrative space. So for us, we have been working remotely since last March. And we're going through a series of surveying of our employees of how do we plan the reemergence. And what we're finding through our survey is that people do want the flexibility. They want to be able to go and drop off their kids at the daycare, come back and work from their home. And one thing we've also realized is that it's going to be very difficult to project the future because people are going to want to have that social interaction at work, being able to have meetings in person. And so when you come into the office, you need to have a space that you can work out of. And so to your point as well is the buildings that were less flexible, those are the buildings that provide less opportunities for us to plan our space because we want to be cognizant about the social distancing and we also want to be able to adapt and pivot. So on that side, I think that's what we're seeing, that is going to be about behaviors, and it's going to be very difficult to predict those behaviors. On the medical side, we have one of the largest electronic medical record systems, as I indicated before. So when we went virtual last year, our rate of virtual care went over 350%. So members actually wanted to be able to continue to see the doctors virtually. So what we're seeing now is, again, sort of the hybrid, depending on what you're going to see or care for, you want to have the option to call in your doctor, but you also want to have the option to go and see your doctor. So as we were planning our medical center here in Charles County, we also had to pivot a little bit to say, what do we build? How do we build it? And nationally, we own and operate over 60 million square feet in the nation. So as we look at our entire footprint, we're also looking at what is the future of healthcare when it comes to that. So I said earlier, for us, access is very important. And access is not just about the bricks and mortar, but it's also about the technology. And how do we implement the changes in technology, the changes in behaviors, and provide access to our members? So it'll be interesting as we progress with the project and the future facing on how our design may change, given some of that flexibility we have to think about in the future.
Thank you, Lorena. I think it's time to move on to audience questions if anybody's got questions for the panel. Commissioner Bowling.
Teachers, all the business owners in the room. I want to echo this, that you all pay for our teachers, our policemen, our firemen, our county employees, our roads, our infrastructure that you're talking about, and we can't thank you enough. Glad to hear that the steps we've taken over the last 3 years. I can't thank staff, and I'm going to ask if all the economic development staff can stand up, because I really think they need to be recognized for all the work they've done. PGM, I'm sorry. They are important too. and I would tell you why, to me, Ruben made a comment that PGM is important. I'll tell you why. Because when we came into office, one thing that was important to us, and I know Ruben and I have talked about this, is streamlining the process. And everything I'm hearing today is delightful. And that's why I took my mask off and smiled, because the reality is we are competing regionally with other counties in other states. What they're saying make me smile. And I can't thank you enough. Now, I want to ask a question, because everybody has complaints to the commissioners. Y'all are being really nice. But I want to know what we can do better. Because if we're not growing, we're not doing anything. And I want to know over the next 2, 3, 4 years, to what we're doing today is going to impact our children. And I want to know what we can do better for you all. That's my question.
And I'm going to summarize real quick for the people who are online. But the first part of what Commissioner Bowling was saying is that it's working. And then he asked our panelists, what could we, county government, do better?
I would say I think it's been better than it has been in some time. So I agree with that. You know, for me, just one simple thing is being able to talk to somebody at PGM on a common sense type of thing that gets sort of lost in all of the language. And you just want one kind of simple answer that seems like it would be real easy to do, but you have to go through all these sort of steps and hoops to get to that, to asking somebody who can appropriately answer the question. So I think being able to skip all that and talk to somebody right away that, you know, can get you what you need, I think would be helpful.
So I'm going to echo what Randall's saying. I talk to Jason on a regular basis because there's a lot of complaints with regards to access and communication. But Jason and Deb have been really working hard to reach out to the existing and new businesses coming to Charles County. So I do want to give them accolades for making improvements. One thing I want you guys to think about is not forgetting your existing businesses. It's great to have Kaiser Permanente coming. It's great to have St. John's Properties coming to Charles County, but your existing businesses need your attention too.
I mean, my experience has been great. I work all across the state, and you know, we had with staff. I mean, we cage fought a little bit, and there were some issues that we just weren't going to get, and they were clear about it. What I like about it was, it wasn't this sort of 5 months. Oh, we'll think about it. They just said, look, this is where our line is, and we're not, you know, this is what's going to be, and we're like, fine. Then we can move on and plan it, and it was very collaborative, I got to say. And I mean, we got through it. I think the end of June, the bill was drafted and dropped, and I think you guys voted on it on the 28th of September. I mean, that's pretty quick. I mean, that was very encouraging. So now the hard work comes of, you know, putting up real plans and hundreds of millions of dollars of risk capital. But I mean, what we've gone through so far was great, I have to say.
And I'll just have to take a rain check on your question because we're just starting the process. But right now, I got to tell you, I have been very pleased about the support that we've gotten and the welcoming that we've gotten. And candidly, I'm looking forward to it. Similarly, you know, I deal with different jurisdictions, and actually has been a fresh breath of air to see how the county really has put forward processes and procedures that we can work through. So more to come for us, but very excited to be working with you all.
We have two questions online. The first one is the Kaiser Permanente project is in the entitlement phase. When are you thinking that we will be breaking ground?
Right now, I can tell you what our opening projected date is, which is 2025. That all depends, of course, on our entitlement process. And we'll keep everyone informed about our progress. We're going to be hosting a series of meetings here next week with Sue to be able to engage more with the community, get feedback on our plans, and as we progress, we'll continue to keep you informed.
And then one other question, any comment or observations about the impact of working from home trend? Can or will these or other potential projects help reduce out commuting, supporting work where you live?
I mean, I think we've already sort of discussed a lot of that, but I think there's going to be it's going to be hybrid pretty much from now on. There's going to be some folks that want to work from home, some folks that don't want to work from home, some businesses that allow flexibility, some businesses that don't allow flexibility. So the commercial real estate market has to be flexible to accommodate all of those trends. So the more businesses we get here, the better. That's just the bottom line. And I think working from home is, like I said, it's not going away, but as long as everyone is flexible, we'll be able to continue to have the businesses here and continue to generate those property tax dollars.
I think you're already seeing the positive impact from the hybrid work model, because we had a lot of commuters that left Charles County, and we get to keep them now for a majority of the time, which is increasing the need for commercial amenities in Charles County. So from a commercial real estate standpoint, this hybrid model is only beneficial. We still have the medium household income is high because they've still got high paying jobs, but they're here at home with us. So that's what I've experienced.
I mean, just evidenced by our vacancy rates. I know during the both the planning board and the commissioner, I don't have the slides with me now, but I went through sort of the occupancy rates at the various parks. I mean, they're 80% up to 90% occupied, and that's primarily due to the flex, I think. So it's the numbers speak for themselves.
Okay, how are we set? And we're going to take a 5-minute break before we bring on our keynote speaker.
2020 looked different for all of us.
And we've had to make some changes. We're doing everything we can
to keep our customers safe, whether that's
utilizing spray fabric sanitizer and fully disposable implements,
using an employee app to help monitor the health, travel, and possible exposure,
taking additional sanitary measures by wiping down instruments between customers, having our store daily deep cleaned and sterilized, and offering curbside pickup.
I'm a full-service day spa,
a local restaurant owner,
musical instrument retailer,
and we need your support.
Together, we can keep Charles County open for business.
Thank you, everybody. We are ready for our keynote speaker today, Mr. Audubon Basu. He's the chairman and CEO of Sage Policy Group, an economic and policy consulting firm in Baltimore. I'm sure you all know him, but I do want to go through his bio. In 2014, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan appointed him chair of the Maryland Economic Development Commission. Audubon also serves as the chief economist to the Associated Builders and Contractors and as the chief economic advisor to the Construction Financial Management Association. In 2007 and then again in 2016, Mr. Basu was selected by the Daily Record newspaper as one of the Maryland's top 50 most influential people. The Baltimore Business Journal named him one of the region's 20 most powerful business leaders in 2010, and he holds 4 graduate degrees, including a JD and a PhD. Today's presentation is titled Arban Basu and the Chamber of Data. I couldn't help myself, so I'm going to say, without further ado, here is Basu.
Thank you so much. Hopefully you can hear me. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with Charles County stakeholders today. Yes, indeed. Thank you for that kind introduction. My presentation is entitled Arban Basu and the Chamber of Data. This is a Harry Potter themed presentation, and you will see that theming throughout this presentation, whether you like it or not. I hope you don't hate it, but it is firmly baked into the cake. Now, as it turns out, it is still the case that globally, the #1 factor influencing economic outcomes continues to be COVID-19. This has been, of course, a shared global pandemic, and it has wrought many behavioral changes with it. And whenever you have behavioral changes, you also have economic changes as well. Many of us have spent a lot of time at home. We continue to in many instances. The previous panel talked about remote work, of course. I'll talk a bit about that as well. But not every family, of course, in Charles County or Maryland looks like this. In fact, most don't. But the point is a shared global pandemic, and yet the response across various societies, state governments, federal governments, even local governments has been so different. Montgomery County versus Charles County, for instance, from a policymaking perspective, that the economic outcomes have often been very different as well. So last year, the U.S. economy shrank around 3.5%. The Chinese economy grew 2.3%. The Taiwanese economy grew 3%. Much of West Africa grew. Much of the area east of the Caspian Sea grew, nations like Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. So, but the Canadian economy faltered, shrinking more than 5%. The Mexican economy more than 8%. But let's focus on the United States, shall we? So the U.S., as I say, shrank around 3.5% from a GDP perspective last year. But for me to say that the U.S. economy shrank 3.5% would be A, accurate, and B, would miss out on a ton of nuance. There were moments, of course, during which the U.S. economy struggles, but there are also moments of quite rapid recovery as well. This is quarterly gross domestic product. And on this chart, this is a quarterly chart with 31 years of data. The blue colored bars are indexed to the left-hand vertical axis, the red colored bars to the right. Now, if you read from left to right, the last blue colored bar is the fourth quarter of 2019, the last pre-pandemic quarter in America. And you'll remember that we marched in 2020 with lots of momentum, but we shut down the economy during that first quarter of 2020. We added jobs in January of 2020. We added 289,000 jobs in February of 2020 as a nation, shut down the economy in March. The first red colored bar, here again, that's indexed to the right-hand vertical axis, is the first quarter of 2020. And during that quarter, the US economy shrinks 5%, despite that early quarter momentum. Now, that's big news by itself. For instance, during the fourth quarter of 2008, the U.S. economy shrinks 8.4% on an annualized basis. So a negative 5% print is a big deal. That's a newsmaker by itself. Unfortunately, this time around, it was merely the appetizer for during the second quarter of 2020, the U.S. economy shrinks 31.4% on an annualized basis, which is why I had to bifurcate the vertical axis, because if I try to graph a number of that magnitude on a single unified vertical axis, a lot of these other vertical bars simply disappear from view. And around that time, a raging debate breaks out in the economics community about what the initial phase of recovery might look like. Would it be U-shaped, L-shaped, Nike swoosh, checkmark, square root, hockey stick? It was a straight up V. For during the third quarter of 2020, the U.S. economy bounces back, growing 33.4% on an annualized basis, demonstrating that under the right circumstances, the U.S. economy is capable of producing enormous recuperative power. Now, for reasons we'll get into, by the fourth quarter, the U.S. economy is softening once again. Stimulus is injected into the economy by the Trump administration on December 27th of last year, then again by the Biden administration on March 11th of this year. We've been growing ever since, in fact, growing more than 6% during the first half of 2021. But look at the third quarter here, just 2% growth. And much of the third quarter was associated not just with economic slowing, but significant increases in inflation. Consumer inflation running more than 5% between September of last year and September of this year. So a bit of a whiff of stagflation over this period. And this has a lot to do with the supply side of the economy. We'll talk about that. Now, that notwithstanding, along the dimension of gross domestic product, this country has more than fully recovered from the pandemic, along that dimension. So if you look at second quarter 2021 gross domestic product, It was 0.8% above its pre-pandemic tally. But along many other dimensions, we're not fully recovered. And one of those dimensions is the US labor market. Let's talk about that now. So this next slide will have the same setup, blue color bars and red color bars. Again, blue color bars indexed to the left-hand vertical axis, red color bars to the right. But this time, instead of quarterly gross domestic product, this is monthly job growth or change in America. Now, reading from left to right, the last blue color bar here is February of 2020, the last pre-pandemic crisis month for the economy in America. February of 2020, again, a month during which we had 289,000 jobs, represents the culmination of a 113-month period during which America adds jobs each and every month with only one exception, February of 2019, a chilly month. And during that 113-month period, this nation adds 22 million jobs. We drive the official rate of unemployment down to 3.5%. Well, that was a 50-year low. You have to go back to December of 1969 to find unemployment as low as it had been pre-crisis. And just to give you a sense of how long ago that was, the Orioles were good back then. I'm from Baltimore, I know such things. We shut down the economy in March. In fact, the first red color bar here is March of 2020. And in March of 2020, again, indexed to the right-hand vertical axis, America loses 1.7 million jobs. But that is misleading. Why? Because the so-called reference week, the week during which the underlying survey was conducted, was relatively early in March. So a lot of the jobs lost in March of 2020 actually didn't show up in that jobs report. They would be reflected in the April of 2020 jobs report, along with some of the jobs lost in April, of course. And in April of 2020, this nation loses 20.7 million jobs. That's that big negative red bar that you see there. If you do the math on that, between March and April of 2020, we lose as many jobs as we had added in the previous 113 months. We wiped out nearly a decade of job growth in just 2 months. That's a game changer. You might remember at the beginning of the pandemic, the notion was, among some at least, you know what, we're going to shut down the economy for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks at the outside, and we will quickly reestablish the status quo ex ante. Here's the issue. We're now not, the better part of 2 years into this, and behavior has shifted. And that has implications for the economy, for real estate, for Charles County, so on and so forth. And we'll talk about all of that, or much of that, as we go through this presentation. Now, around this time, the Wall Street Journal, now we're talking about the spring of 2020, the Wall Street Journal conducts a survey of economists, mostly economists who work for large U.S. financial institutions and some prominent academics, not small business operators like myself. And those economists collectively predict in that survey that America will lose another 8 million jobs in May of 2020. But they were wrong. We do not lose 8 million jobs in May of 2020. We add 2.8 million of them, followed by 4.8 million jobs added in June of 2020, and 1.7 million jobs in July, and 1.6 million jobs in August, and 716,000 jobs in September, and 680,000 jobs in October. Fabulous. That V-shaped recovery. But again, for reasons we'll get into, by the fourth quarter of last year, momentum is waning. If you look at the red color bars here very carefully, you might see a little sliver that's negative below the zero line. That's December of 2020, a month during which America loses 306,000 jobs. Again, stimulus last December, stimulus injected in the economy in March, we've been adding jobs ever since. But notice the September 2021 tally, only 194,000 jobs created. And this is not an issue of demand for workers. Demand for workers remains elevated. You see, hiring signs everywhere. Job openings signs are everywhere, listings everywhere. According to the most recent data, 10.4 million available unfilled jobs in America. Truck drivers, carpenters, mechanics, machinists, you name it. Restaurant workers, hotel workers, so on and so forth. The issue here is one of labor supply. For whatever reason, a lot of people have not jumped back into the workforce. The labor force participation rate coming into the crisis was 63.3%. It's now 61.6%. Our labor force has shrunk markedly since the beginning of the pandemic by around 3.1 million people. And it's too bad that job growth has slowed so significantly over the last couple of months, because along this dimension, we're not fully recovered. If you compare February of 2020 employment versus September of 2021, we're down 5 million jobs as a country. So ostensibly, there should be lots of folks looking for work. That's not what you see. And these horizontal bars represent the number of jobs lost by each of these industry categories. Well, they've all lost jobs. Number one category in terms of job loss, leisure and hospitality. That is by and large your restaurant and hotel worker, down 1.6 million jobs. But health services, I know we've talked a lot about Kaiser Permanente, for instance. fantastic enterprise, and actually, as it turns out, one of our clients. So I'm glad that they're involved with this conference. And I'm glad that they're involved with Charles County, of course. But manufacturing, finance, you name it, every segment has lost jobs. So the labor supply issue is a big challenge, and we'll talk more about the effects of this on the broader economy as we go through this presentation. But let me show you some more data. Here in Maryland, between February of 2020 and September of 2021, and why these goalposts, by the way? Why did I pick this period? February 2020 is the last month before the economy collapses. It's the last pre-pandemic crisis month for the economy in America. September of 2021 is the last month for which we have data. So that's why I have this 19-month comparison up here. But our state has lost 109,400 jobs. 3.9% of our pre-existing base of employment has disappeared. Now, it'll come back eventually, of course, but getting to full recovery along this dimension is taking quite a bit of time. Again, number one sector losing jobs, leisure and hospitality, your hotel and restaurant workers. Notice two categories adding jobs: government, and we have seen a lot of government spending, of course, and we'll talk more about that later in the webinar. But then professional business services. Why? My very strong sense is that a lot of Americans who are looking for work right now are looking for remote work opportunities. They are. That's what survey data indicate. And professional services is more likely to offer that remote work, that white-collar job opportunity where people can stay at home and do their jobs, as opposed to construction, manufacturing, retail, restaurants, hotels have to be in person for the most part. So I think that's one of the reasons that professional business services is able to recruit more workers to fill its job openings relative to other industries. Baltimore Metro, my region, again, for the same 19-month time period, down 48,500 jobs, losing 3.4% of its previous base of employment, actually one of the better performing metropolitan areas during the period of pandemic. Again, mimicking the nation, leisure hospitality, losing the most jobs. But of course, Charles County is part of the Washington metropolitan area. And believe it or not, Washington Metro has actually lost a higher fraction of its jobs during the pandemic than Baltimore Metro. And that might surprise you, given all the federal agency employment, federal government contractors, researchers at FDA and NIH and so on and so forth. But remember, Washington Metro, the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, has a massive leisure and hospitality segment. Lots of hotels, lots of restaurants, and lots of job loss in that category. So during this pandemic period, Washington Metro has lost 3.6% of its job totals. And guess what? What is the one segment that has added jobs in Washington Metro? It's professional business services. And again, I think that has a lot to do, not just with the fact that there are job openings there, but there are job openings across the economy. There's job openings in healthcare, for instance. But the issue here, in many instances, is again that remote work opportunity. This gives you some regional economic perspective. So this is employment growth for the 25 largest metropolitan areas in our country. Now, it's largely a mistitled slide. Again, this is for the period February of 2020 to September of 2021. It's largely mistitled because there's very little evidence of employment growth here. During the pandemic, only one of the nation's 25 largest metropolitan areas has added jobs, and that region is the Tampa, Florida metropolitan area. Tampa is very good in baseball, they're good in football, they're good in hockey. They call themselves Tampa Bay. And the governor of Florida happens to be a guy named Ron DeSantis. Now, Ron DeSantis was one of these governors very aggressive in keeping his state's economy open during the worst of the crisis. The same can be said for the governor of Texas. You see Dallas here at number 2. Greg Abbott of Texas, much of the news recently, as it turns out. But again, very aggressive in keeping that state's economy open. Tied for number 2 is Phoenix. That's Governor Doug Ducey of Arizona. Again, very aggressive in keeping that state's economy open. Cherry picking now at number 8, Atlanta. That's Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia, very aggressive in keeping that state's economy open. In fact, was the first governor in the country to reopen his economy, happened on April 20th of last year. So some governors were focused on the economic and employment outcomes, more interested in hewing to normality. Other governors were more focused on the public health issues created by the pandemic and therefore tended to favor a more widespread and lengthier shutdowns of the economy. So at number 25 here at the bottom of the second column, New York Metro has lost about 7.9% of its pre-existing base of employment, the worst performance among these metropolitan areas. Who's the governor of New York? Well, right now it's Kathy Hochul, but for much of the pandemic, it was Andrew Cuomo. He and his counterpart, Phil Murphy, New Jersey, pretty aggressive in keeping their economy shut down. For instance, they shut down mass transit in New York, which when you do that, you tend to shut down much of the New York metropolitan area economy. Again, New York City, of course, was an early stage viral epicenter. So were some of the large California markets. At number 24, San Francisco. Who's the governor of California? Why, it's the wickedly handsome Gavin Newsom, himself could be a Hollywood actor, utterly gorgeous. very aggressive in keeping that economy shut down. In fact, was the last governor in the country to reopen his economy, happened actually very recently. So some governors, again, fixated on keeping the economy open, others shutting it down more aggressively. I'm not here to suggest that one approach is better than the other. That's for you to decide, trading lives against livelihoods, challenging decision-making. But these decisions have economic consequences, particularly if you agree with this following proposition, that one of the propositions for which this pandemic stands is that it's very difficult to bring capacity back online. So here's what I mean. During the early phase of the pandemic, we demonstrated, as a corporate community, for instance, you can shut down capacity pretty quickly. You can lay off workers, which we did in March and April of 2020 in large numbers. You can mothball ships. You can shutter factories, sawmills, whatever it happens to be. It has been difficult to bring all that capacity back online, particularly the workers. And so we continue to be in the supply-constrained environment. More on that in a moment. Unemployment came into the crisis, as I mentioned earlier, with a 3.5% rate of unemployment. By April of 2020, that's the big peak you see here, we're at 14.8%. Now here I'm offering you some additional granularity. I'm showing you male unemployment in blue, female unemployment in green, and overall unemployment in red. So during the previous economic downturn, men suffered relatively much more, and that had a lot to do with the massive job losses sustained in construction and manufacturing, each of those categories losing 2 million jobs or more during the periods of the respective downturns. Those are male-dominated sectors. This time was different. It was leisure and hospitality, retail trade, daycare centers, salons, home health, physicians' offices, dental offices. So a lot of female-dominated occupational categories were directly implicated by shutdowns. So in April of 2020, while the overall rate of unemployment is 14.8%, for women that month is 16.1%, for men that month 13.6%. Now you can see the improvement rendered since that time. By September of this year, we're down to 4.8% unemployment. Again, that is somewhat misleading, in fact, quite misleading, because the labor force has shrunk by 3.1 million people. So there are lots of people out there who are not looking for work and therefore not considered to be unemployed. If you were to add those folks back into the ranks of job seekers, the unemployment rate would be closer to 7%. Nonetheless, if you flip this line upside down, and why would you do that? It's because less is more here. The lower the number, the better. This is unemployment. You would see that V-shaped recovery. But here's another thing. At 4.8% unemployment, please do not think, and I'm sure you don't, that there are lots of folks out there waiting to fill jobs. The labor market is already pretty constrained. 10.4 million job openings, we're already down to 4.8% unemployment. So a lot of these jobs that are open right now will continue to go unfilled, and that limits income growth and that limits economic growth. And we'll talk again more about that as we go through this webinar. Same 25 metropolitan areas, but this is now unemployment as of August. Now, again, lots of things shape these data. So the Orlando area, though it's in Florida, was very hit hard by the pandemic because they're mostly about tourism. And so they've had fairly high unemployment during much of this crisis. So the structure of economies, public health outcomes, those things matter, but it's probably not completely coincidental. But the lowest unemployment rate here is in Brian Kemp's Atlanta, Georgia. The highest unemployment rate here is in Gavin Newsom's Los Angeles, California. You say, well, Anibon, what about Charles County? Well, here it is. So as of August of 2021, Charles County's unemployment rate was still a quite lofty 6.1%. So in some sense, believe it or not, that's good news, because it means that there's a fairly significant number of Charles County residents, and this is based on the residential base, there's a fair number of Charles County residents who are looking for work. Well, that's great, because as those people rejoin the ranks of the employed, that's going to help drive economic growth and quickly broaden prosperity. You can see in certain jurisdictions, unemployment is now well below 5%, Carroll County, Howard County, so on and so forth. The two highest rates of unemployment are in our two majority-minority jurisdictions in the state, Baltimore City and Prince George's County, and it's still the case that the African-American/Black unemployment rate is meaningfully higher than unemployment rates for other groups. So it should be noted that the highest unemployment rate during the worst of the crisis was actually among the Latinx population. The Latinx population unemployment rate by the spring of 2020, that unemployment rate had approached 19%. Now, drilling down on Charles County, how did we get to 6.1% for August? Well, here's Charles County's unemployment rate over time, and you can see how dramatically it rose during the worst of the crisis, above 9%. It's fallen since, but you can see that in the last few months, there's not been a lot of progress in terms of reducing unemployment. And it might be, one of the things that might be happening is that many people who are looking for work are looking for a particular type of job. So a lot of folks in Charles County have spent many hours on the Beltway over history. And then they got a taste of what life is without the Beltway, and it tastes good. And they might be looking for remote work to try to maintain that quality of life. But remote jobs, they exist, but not everywhere necessarily. And not everyone's qualified for a job in professional services, so on and so forth. So there could be some retraining that's needed, so on and so. But the point is, that might be why some people have openings in front of them. The restaurant next door might have a job opening, but that's not the job they want. They want something different. Or there might be a job opening in Prince George's County or in Fairfax County, Virginia, where it happens to be, but they want something that keeps them closer to home, which of course represents an economic opportunity for Charles County, reduced commutes, higher quality of life, in fact, higher home values over time as more people work remotely. But more on this as I go through the presentation and get to the commercial real estate part of the presentation. This is Charles County employment by place of residence. So I want to be clear here. This does not reflect the number of jobs in Charles County. This reflects the number of people who live in Charles County with a job. Now, if you read the top caption on the right there, it says between August, for the year ended August of 2021, Charles County's population of residents with jobs increased by 72. If you look at the bottom caption there, between February of 2020 and August of 2021, there are 8,850 fewer people with jobs who live in Charles County. That's a 10% reduction in that residentially employed base. That's massive. And you can see there has not been much progress in recent months. So again, lots of things happening here, but one of the phenomena is that to the extent that there are job seekers who live in Charles County, they might be looking for a different type of opportunity, and that job search takes some time. And so that's why the data are not improving as rapidly as one might like. Now let's talk about some other aspects of economic life. So we've talked about, very briefly, some of the behavioral changes, the desire among many Americans to work remotely, for instance, one of those behavioral changes. There's some others we'll talk about. But let's shift now to policymaking. Now, if you're familiar with the Harry Potter books and movies, you know that the government of witches and wizards is known as the Ministry of Magic. The Ministry of Magic, very powerful cadre of witches and wizards. Now, I don't know how much magic comes out of Washington, D.C. I can tell you that many dollars did during the worst of this pandemic. For instance, last year, 3 major stimulus packages passed. The first one signed by then President Donald Trump on March 27th, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or CARES Act. This was a $2.2 to $2.3 trillion package. It becomes the model for most of the subsequent packages thereafter: direct payments to Americans, extended and enhanced unemployment insurance, and this is your Paycheck Protection Program. At this point, the U.S. economy is in free fall. You'll remember that, again, in April of 2020, we lose 20.7 million jobs. So less than a month later, Congress legislates and the president signs another stimulus package, more money for paycheck protection, and also monies to bulk up healthcare delivery capacity. But then for many months after April of 2020, no major stimulus was injected to the economy. By the summer of 2020, the U.S. economy is coming back. We're adding millions of jobs. Unemployment is falling. The housing market is booming. So too is the stock market. The economy begins to lose momentum. So that stimulus that worked its way through the economy during the summer months of last year and then into the fall. But by October, retail sales are getting choppy again. As I mentioned earlier, by December, we're losing jobs. So since then, the economy is falling apart once again. And with the presidential and congressional elections now behind them, Congress legislates, the president signs. 9 months after he signs the CARES Act, the Consolidated Appropriations Act, a $906 billion package, more direct payments to Americans, more extended and enhanced unemployment insurance, more loans and grants to businesses. Now, all this news has been trumped by the latest stimulus package signed by Joe Biden on March 11th, the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. This has been a $1.9 trillion package, more direct payments to Americans, more extended and enhanced unemployment insurance from the federal government, though that lapsed on September 6th, more loans and grants to businesses, so on and so forth. But also this included something else, direct payments or direct aid to state and local governments to the tune of $350 billion. So for some communities, well, the state of Maryland, for instance, not quite $4 billion coming out of this package. For the city of Baltimore, around $641 million. I mean, these are game changers. All of a sudden, places that look like they're going to run massive deficits are going to be flush with cash. And one of the drivers of economic growth next year, as it turns out, will be state and local government spending. Of course, Charles County receives monies under the American Rescue Plan Act. And of course, that money should be spent wisely, though based on its wealth and its size, so on and so forth, that money is not as fabulously generous as we see in some other jurisdictions. Nonetheless, this is a stimulant for economic growth next year, as much of this money has yet to be spent. Now, you can ask the question, well, $6 trillion of stimulus you just went through, Anibon, are we being Dumbledore? Meaning, are you being silly, foolish? We came into this crisis with a $23.5 trillion national debt. We are now closing in at $29 trillion. Albus Dumbledore, of course, the headmaster of Hogwarts School, Hogwarts made famous by the Harry Potter books and movies, I am told the greatest headmaster in Hogwarts history. So again, I mean, I was taught in economics, there's no free lunch. There's no free lunch. So at some point, we Americans are going to have to pay this back. If not literally, then we're going to pay for it in some other way. Financial crisis, bond market revolt, devalued currency, a grinding down of economic growth as debt service increasingly takes away monies for education, infrastructure, public parks, so on and so forth. And so we've got some issues here. And of course, and this is, I'm not political here, partisan, but the Biden administration is talking about additional stimulus. And well, I mean, again, no free lunch. And so this is one of the things that Charles County in particular has to think about, because Charles County is part of the Washington metropolitan area. And I can't imagine a metropolitan area that will be more impacted by a federal government debt crisis than, of course, the Washington metropolitan area. So one of the aspects of economic life in Charles County are planning for the future. And we've said this before, but diversifying that economy away from federal activities, finding other industries and growing those industries, whether it's manufacturing or other industries that don't necessarily depend upon federal government outlays. Okay, let's keep talking about some of the changes wrought or rendered by the pandemic, but let's go back to behavior now. And one of the things that the pandemic did was it altered how we shop and what we buy. So of course, during the early stages of the pandemic, we shut down malls, we shut down retail trade, we shut down restaurants. No surprise, there was a fair number of retail bankruptcies sustained last year. Here's some of the large retail bankruptcies sustained in 2020. So if you look at the third column here, you'll see that Pier 1 Imports goes bankrupt in February before the crisis really becomes one in North America, and they close all of their stores. And this gets to commercial real estate because, of course, we have a lot of underutilized retail space out there. True Religion, which is the maker of those excellent G's that make everyone look slender, they go bankrupt in April. Then you can see sequentially J. Crew, Neiman Marcus, JCPenney go bankrupt in May. GNC goes bankrupt in June. GNC is the provider of those health supplements that many of us take to restore our vitality, to build up our strength, to build up our musculature. I pop these pills like crazy. I still have the arms with the count for whatever reason. Brooks Brothers goes bankrupt in July. You can see Lord & Taylor, that Howell department store, goes bankrupt in August. And then Guitar Center and Francesca's later in the year. And now, here's the thing. I can make the argument that last year was a spectacular year for retail sales. I mean, unable to go to theaters, unable to go take a vacation in Hawaii or Orlando or in Paris, France. We ended up spending less on services and more on goods. And you can see that in the retail sales numbers. This is US retail sales, 21 years of data here, but I'll focus on the right of the slide, the more recent data. Yes, if you look at monthly retail sales, there was a moment of weakness, and it begins in February of 2020. What's special about February of 2020? Well, by this point, you and I have heard about COVID-19. We haven't yet shut down the economy, but many people are beginning to withdraw from the economy voluntarily, at least in part. They're not going out as much, not shopping as much for fear of infection, for fear of the unknown. And then by March and April of last year, you can see retail sales fall off the table as we shut down the economy in earnest. But lo and behold, what you observe, ladies and gentlemen, again, that V-shaped recovery. By June of last year, retail sales are above their pre-pandemic peak, and then they keep climbing. The September 2021 retail sales were fabulous. My guess is October will be too, because many of you have probably heard that store shelves are emptying pretty quickly, and that merchandise is kind of scarce right now, and especially in certain categories. And so if you don't do your holiday shopping early on, by December, you won't have as much merchandise to pick over. So anyway, I would expect retail sales to be quite strong going forward. So how do we reconcile this fabulous performance with the fact that we suffered so many retail bankruptcies last year? Well, of course, there was a period of weakness. There are some retailers who entered this period weak financially. JCPenney comes to mind. And some segments of retail fared better than others. This is U.S. retail sales by type of business. And these horizontal bars represent the percentage change in retail sales between February of 2020 and September of 2021. Now, online sales have gotten all the ink, but there was a brick and mortar category that actually outperformed the internet retailers, and that was sporting goods, hobby book, and music stores. What's that about? That's about the purchase of Peloton bikes and other exercise equipment. If people could go to the gyms, they brought the gym into the house. They brought the weight set, the Peloton bike, the rowing machine. that mirror thing that I don't fully understand. Are there people actually behind there? I don't know. The point is this. People brought gyms into their house. And so what does this mean for gym membership going forward? I mean, if I've got the exercise equipment in the home, what do I need a gym membership for? I was only using it twice a year anyway, one time after Thanksgiving and one time after Christmas. So now, the second category here is the internet. Of course, online sales boomed. We were at home a lot, so we're trying to source goods. We were at home, ordering on Amazon. Jeff Bezos and Amazon had a good year last year. Jeff Bezos had a good year last year, not romantically, but in terms of hiring 500,000 associates and continue to hire this year, Amazon is everywhere. Now, if you look at the bottom here, you'll see the worst performing categories at the very bottom, electronics and appliance stores. And that might surprise you. Say, look, Anibal, we've been spending a lot of time at home. I would have thought that electronics and appliances would have been very popular. They have been very popular. Demand for these goods has been high. What's the issue here? The supply side of the economy, lack of computer chips. So not as much inventory, not as much merchandise to buy, and so sales have not grown as one might have anticipated. And then above that, food services and drinking places. Food services and drinking places. That's a fancy way of saying restaurants and bars. So most of you refer to this as restaurants and bars. The economists call this food services and drinking places, which is one of the many reasons many of us have never been on a date. And then clothing and clothing accessory stores, a couple of categories up from that. During the early stages of the pandemic, we didn't buy a lot of clothing. Why should we? We weren't going out, right? We only need to look good from like here on up, right here, right here. So, that lines up neatly with the bankruptcies of J. Crew, True Religion, Francesca's, and others that depend upon apparel retail. What about another sector of the economy slammed by social distancing? Restaurants. So one of the other things that happened in the pandemic is that we economists, along with many other observers, no longer were simply satisfied waiting back for the monthly or quarterly data. The economy is just changing too quickly. I mean, there are probably days in April of 2020 that we lost about 1 million jobs on a day. So we didn't just want to wait by and wait for the monthly or quarterly data. We're looking for high frequency data. This is high frequency data. It comes out each and every day from Open Table. It's a measure of US restaurant reservations. And the squiggly green line here reflects the percentage change in restaurant reservations on any given date vis-a-vis the same date in 2019, the last pre-pandemic year in America. So if you look toward the left of the slide here, you notice back in March and April of 2020, we go down to negative 100%. We shut down indoor dining in America. That's what happened. Now, my staff in Baltimore created this slide on my behalf. They're mostly in their 20s and 30s or millennials, and they took the vertical axis down to negative 120%. And I need to tell them once we get back into the office that the most you can go down is negative 100%. But please set that aside. That's an internal staffing issue. You can see as we go May into June, the recovery, the rebound in restaurant reservations, but it's not sustained. Why? Multiple viral surges. So first, of course, we had the viral surge last March and April, then the summer surge in the American South last year, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Arizona, Southern California, then the surge nationwide after Labor Day of last year, and the even bigger surge earlier this year, and more recently, of course, that tied to the Delta variant. So except for special weekends, what we continue to observe is that in general, restaurants are not fully recovered on average back to 2019 levels. And so that segment continues to be under pressure, and the Delta variant has delayed recovery in that segment. And of course, many restaurateurs will also tell you that their bigger issue is they can't find workforce to help them maintain standard, routine, normal hours. So there are all kinds of issues here facing our restaurants still. Now, let's go back to policy. So this is the real estate and construction part of the presentation, but I'll also talk about policy, in particular, monetary policy. So of course, the fiscal policymakers quite active during this period, but so too have the monetary policymakers been active. Now, if you're familiar with the Harry Potter books and movies, you know that any student who gains admittance into Hogwarts is allocated into one of 4 houses. There is Hufflepuff, there is Gryffindor. Indeed, Harry Potter and his 2 best friends, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, are members of Gryffindor house. It's an active and prestigious house. I'm from Baltimore. And any wizard from Baltimore ends up in Ravenclaw. That's just a rule. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just telling you what it is. There's some other rules out there. So for instance, if you're from Pittsburgh, you end up in Slytherin. And of course, no one from Cleveland ever gets in. So in any case, monetary policy making very active. The Federal Reserve effectively reducing the short-term rates that they directly control to 0%, the Fed funds rate and the discount rate, and also continue to engage in quantitative easing, putting more money supply into the economy month by month by month. And the strategy has been to keep interest rates low, and it has worked. Here I'm showing you 2 interest rates of interest, the 15-year fixed mortgage rate in red and the 30-year fixed mortgage rate in blue, and you can see mortgage rates incredibly low despite high inflation. And economic theory has a difficult time explaining this because typically economic theory would predict that when inflation goes up, interest rates go up. And they might have gone up some recently, but not by as much as inflation has gone up recently. So this is pretty interesting. Interest rates continue to be low. Now, it would not surprise any member of this esteemed audience, I suspect, to hear that home prices were rising prior to the pandemic. Well, of course they were. The inventory of unsold homes by that point was quite low. Demand is high in the context of still low mortgage rates, even pre-pandemic, but also the fact that we're adding tons of jobs. Incomes were growing rapidly in the context of a 50-year low in unemployment, and confidence was high. I think it could be viewed as somewhat surprising, in fact, very surprising, that the pace of home price appreciation has exploded during a pandemic that has today cost us 5 million jobs and shrunk our labor force. This is the S&P Case-Shiller U.S. National Home Price Index, and you can see what I'm talking about. Now, many people will say to you, oh, this is a bubble. This is 03, 04, 05 all over again. It is not necessarily at least. There might be a period during which home prices begin to fall, and that would happen if mortgage rates take off too far too fast. That's true. But from a supply-demand equilibrium analysis, there's no bubble here. Back in 03, 04, 05, we were building a lot more housing. So prices were rising and we're jacking up supply. Now, this time around, we're seeing home price increases after a period of not much single-family construction. And so, one of the things I want to do as I move toward the tail end of this presentation, I'll leave about 5 minutes for Q&A. I've been told to do that by Sandy Dubé, as it turns out. Sandy Dubé, Boston Mirror, like you can't believe. I don't know if you know Sandy. Whew. Anyway, the point is this. If you look at some leading indicators, and I want to show you a set of leading indicators as I move toward the end of the presentation, because I want to get you to a 2022 forecast. Here's a leading indicator. It's U.S. residential building permits. Okay, U.S. residential building permits. And this is a leading indicator because if you're a builder, you've got to pull a permit before you build. So the segment I want to focus on here is the red segment. That relates to single family or single unit structures, I should say. So that's your townhome or your single family detached home, again in red. And again, it's a leading indicator, as I say, if you're a builder, you got to pull a permit before you build. So you can see in 03, 04, 05, how much we were building. And at that time, of course, demand for housing is being artificially increased through fraudulent lending or poor lending generally. Right? That's your no document loan, subprime mortgages, so on and so forth. As far as I can tell, lending centers are far more disciplined still today than they were back then. And we've come off a decade roughly of very little single family home construction. The capital went into the apartment market. The apartment market boomed last decade, not the single family housing market in terms of construction. True, if you look at 2019 here, you'll see some pickup in single family permits prior to the pandemic, but during the pandemic, you see that reduction as in some cases, builders might have been shy to file applications, not knowing what the world would look like during and after the pandemic. And also in some cases, government agencies that consider such applications and issue permits themselves may not have been fully functional or operational to issue such permits. But since that time, again, you can see a V-shaped recovery. So now I'll show you a number of things: the pace at which gross domestic product recovered, the pace at which employment recovered, the pace at which unemployment declined, the pace at which retail sales recovered, and now single-family permits all manifesting that V-shaped trajectory. Now, you can see that during the most recent months, single-family permits have been declining again. Why, Anibot? Two-word answer: softwood lumber. But it's not just softwood lumber, which gets much of the press. It's copper, it's appliances, it's concrete slab, it's gypsum, it's glass, it's workers, it's anything that goes into the cost of constructing a new home has become much more expensive over the course of the pandemic. Yeah, lumber prices have fallen and they have risen on occasion, but they remain well above what they were pre-pandemic, along with most other input prices. And so this has truncated the market, as many builders find that they cannot deliver homes at price points that are agreeable to their prospective buyers. Now, one of the other things that this reflects is, again, a change in behavior. You see the red colored bar there? The red colored bar there represents the 2 million people who moved out of principal cities in America last year. You see the blue colored bar? That reflects the 3 million people who moved into suburbs. We became more suburban as a nation. Advantage, Charles County. Because this creates more demand. Again, the prospect of remote work. So I could be loosely tied to the Washington, D.C. or Fairfax County or Arlington County or Montgomery County economy. Maybe I have to go into work once or twice a week, but I can live in Charles County, and it's not that big of a deal to commute once or twice a week. 5 days a week, that's a problem. Of course, many people still did it during the old days. But nonetheless, with remote work as an increasing option, all of a sudden Charles County becomes much more appealing to many more Americans as a value proposition. And we became more suburban during the pandemic. Social distancing, we needed more space for home offices and home gymnasiums, just spending more time at home, wanting more space. Of course, low mortgage rates helped propel this move to the suburbs and this move toward home ownership. And this is one of the reasons you see these rapid rises in home prices. So one of the things I would say to you is this, that the value of proximity has dissipated, at least to an extent, during the pandemic. Here's what I mean. Ask yourself the question, why is Manhattan so expensive? Proximity, of course, Wall Street is right there. But the two largest central business districts in America are in Manhattan, that's Lower Manhattan, the financial district, and Midtown. Central Park, Broadway, fabulous nightlife, fabulous dining scene, views of New Jersey and of Brooklyn, it's very glamorous. But in a world of remote work, online shopping, and streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Paramount Plus, HBO Max, proximity doesn't matter as much. And now, of course, Facebook is marketing what's going to be the metaverse, which literally will be an opportunity for us to live completely digitally, have a life completely digitally. And what I would recommend to you after this session, after this Charles County meeting, is go outside and stare at the leaves. Be outside. Because I think increasingly many human beings are not going to go outside at all. And again, remote work is a step in that direction. And there's a negative associated with that. But what this chart reflects is rent changes in major U.S. cities between March and December of last year. So what I'm trying to say is in 9 months, rents in San Francisco fell 27% in San Francisco, 22% in Seattle, 21% in Boston, 20% in New York, 50% in Washington, 50% in San Jose. Now, some of these rents have bounced back, in fact, quite rapidly, because home prices are so expensive that many families who would have purchased a home, whether in Charles County or Calvin County or any place else, have said, I can't afford a home, I can't find the home I want to buy, and therefore I'm going to lease an apartment for another year or two, and that drives up occupancy, drives up rents. So housing is becoming more expensive. But even during the worst of times, rents did not decline everywhere, not in Fresno, not in Memphis. So one of the things that we economists have emphasized is the fact that many Americans have moved from more expensive communities. We've emphasized that many Americans have moved from cities to suburbs. We'll put less emphasis on the fact that many Americans have moved from more expensive communities to less expensive communities. And again, I think there's an advantage here in terms of attracting population to Charles County. Now, of course, growth management is important. One wouldn't want to unleash further sprawl, that kind of thing. So planning makes a lot of difference in terms of maximizing quality of life. But the fact of the matter is a Charles County address is probably more popular now with the pandemic than it would have been without the pandemic. Again, that's a source of economic opportunity. This is another way of looking at things. You see the dark purple line here? This reflects the rent declines sustained in principal cities during last year's 12 months. The lighter purple line reflects what happened in suburban cities. So I'm from Baltimore. So our suburban cities are the likes of Ellicott City, Columbia, Towson, White Marsh, Hunt Valley, Billings Mills, Pikesville, Catonsville, Bel Air, Fallston, Severna Park, Bel Air, Annapolis, Westminster, Hampstead. I could go on. I think I am, Sykesville. But the point is, that's not where the population is dissipated from, and that's not where the rents fell. Now, just a brief moment on commercial real estate. I think commercial real estate will be one of the weaker segments of the economy for years to come. And again, a lot of this has to do with behavioral changes. But there's something else at work here. As defined by the U.S. Census Bureau, there are 16 categories of non-residential construction in our country. So everything other than the construction in which people live, so apartments and homes, for instance, non-residential construction. And these horizontal bars represent the percentage change in construction spending for the 5-year period spanning from February 2015 to February of 2020. So at the very top of this list is public safety. Set that aside, please. That relates to the pandemic response. So the money to turn convention centers into temporary hospitals was reflected in public safety expenditures. So that's the pandemic. But the second category here includes office. We built a ton of new office buildings in this country just before a pandemic. And now we know that many Americans are as productive or more productive working from home as in the office. We know that. Now, there's some people in real estate that don't want to admit that, but the studies from Germany, China, America, elsewhere indicate that many workers are as productive or more productive working from home. But here's the thing, that's not what really matters. Productivity matters most to employers. But what matters to employees is quality of life. Quality of life. And surveys are indicating that many Americans prefer to work remotely. And we're in a country in which there are 80 job openings for every 80 unemployed people for every 100 job openings. In other words, there's more job openings. There are more job openings than unemployed people. So who has the negotiating leverage right now? It is the employee. Is it any coincidence that John Deere just suffered its first strike in 35 years? No. Employees have the leverage right now, and they know that. And so if they want to work remotely, in many cases, employers are going to have to buckle. PwC, that gigantic accounting firm, did not say to 40,000 American workers, you can work remotely if you want, because they have negotiating leverage. They did it because this is a way to recruit and retain workers. They know that many people prefer to work remotely, including those folks in professional service. And at number 3 here is lodging. That's hotel room construction. Well, again, we can hold meetings this way. I mean, some of you are in person, some of you are with me in remote land here, but the point is more and more business meetings through Zoom and GoToWebinar and so on and so on, Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx. So that cannot be good for the hotel sector. Indeed, it has not been. So this slide is from February 2015 to February of 2020. This next slide has the same 16 segments, but now the time period is about to change from this period, 5 years before the pandemic, to this period, February 2020 to September 2021, the pandemic period. Look what's at the bottom here. What category? Lodging, that's hotel room construction. And again, that has a lot to do with the soft recovery in business travel. Because of course, if I do not have to attend a meeting in person, I save on lodging, I save on airfare, so on and so forth. And of course, airfares have been rising, but as importantly, a lot of workers, a lot of employees have been stuck at airports because of the issues at Southwest and American and so on and so forth. And of course, again, this relates to labor force. It's not unique to the airline industry, but it's another reason why many people might want to have meetings remotely, at least for the time being. And then you look here at the office category, a few categories up from that, it's down 13.2% in terms of construction spending. No surprise. We've got enough office space in this country. Now, you will see a lot of modification of existing buildings, but this negative 13.2% is misleading, because the office category also includes the construction of data center. And data center construction is fast and furious. So the traditional office space number is actually much worse than this negative 13.2% suggests. So in any case, and again, other segments of commercial real estate, restaurant space. I mean, so many of us are used to, grocery stores. So many of us are now used to getting our groceries through Instacart or food through DoorDash or Uber Eats. We're buying online from Amazon, of course, and Wayfair and many, many others. And none of this is particularly good news for demand for physical space. And so this is one of the debates, of course, between economists amongst themselves and also economists and people in commercial real estate. Final part of the presentation, the forecast. Give me 4 more minutes. We'll leave the rest of the hour for Q&A. Now, the economists have a tendency to excessively complicate matters, and we do this on purpose. The notion is that if you can't understand what we're saying, you'll deem us to be highly intelligent. So I don't know how you're going to evaluate this session, but you might say, you know what? I'm so glad you invited Anirban Basu back. I'm so glad Charles County Economic Development invited Basu back. I didn't understand a bloody thing he said, of course, but my goodness, is he intelligent. But as it turns out in economics, it comes out of 2 things. That's it, demand and supply. And the principal source of demand in the U.S. economy is the consumer. That's why they're often labeled 2/3 of the economy. They're 2/3 of aggregate demand. They're so important that we also monitor their psychology, not what they're actually buying or what prices they're paying. This is the University of Michigan's Index of Consumer Sentiment. How do consumers feel? Pretty lousy. Delta variant, inflation, rising food prices, rising fuel prices, lots of things about which to complain. But I could make the argument that the American consumer has never been in better financial shape. Now, at some level, that sounds deeply insensitive. I know and you know that many Americans face food insecurity. Many face evictions. Many lost their health insurance during the worst of the crisis when they needed it most. Many can't deal with their student loans and other forms of debt. Yes, that's true. At any given moment, some fraction of American families will really be struggling financially and otherwise. That's the microeconomics of the situation. That's probably more true now than was the case pre-pandemic. But many other American households took this opportunity to improve their household balance sheets and to actually save a fair amount of money, and that's money that's ready to be spent. This is the U.S. savings rate. This is savings as a percentage of personal disposable income. It's basically a reflection of how much money people take out of their paychecks every couple of weeks and set aside into some account. Could be savings, could be checkings, could be 401k, could be 403b, but they're not spending that money right away. That's the point. So coming into the pandemic, the savings rate is around 7 to 8%. By April of 2020, that's the big peak you see here, we're at 33.7%. So money's coming to the household, stimulus payments, other forms of payments, unemployment insurance. but that money can't be spent easily. Theaters are closed, malls are closed, restaurants are closed, can't take a vacation. So as the economy reopens and fits and starts, so savings turn to expenditures, U.S. economy takes off with that V-shaped recovery. Savings has been generally high during the pandemic, falling very recently, but over the course of the pandemic, American households have amassed $3 trillion in excess savings, meaning savings above and beyond what they would have saved but for the pandemic. So the demand side of the economy is ready to go. What's the issue here? Why has job growth slowed? Why has inflation increased? Why has GDP growth slowed? Supply side. Now we can talk about supply chain disruptions all day, whether in Vietnam, Malaysia, China, elsewhere. We can talk about the Port of Los Angeles, Port of Savannah, and all these backups, lack of truck drivers, all that. But one of the other phenomenon that we observe is a lack of confidence among many small business operators. This is from the National Federation of Independent Business question. Small Business America, is it a good time to expand your business over the next 3 months? In September, only 11% of small business operators said yes. They face inflation. They can't find workers. Their workers are becoming more expensive. They're having a difficult time retaining workers. The so-called quits rate hit a record last month. 2.9% of all American workers quit their jobs. That's 4.3 million Americans. And if small businesses are not confident, they will not expand capacity. And if they don't expand their capacity, that supply cannot necessarily rise to meet up that crescendo of demand. And it takes two to make a thing go right. I said Rob Bass 1980. It takes two to make a thing go right. Also, DJ Easy Rob is part of that. But the point is, it takes demand and supply. And the demand side is strong. The supply side continues to be in some disarray. This is the forecast from the International Monetary Fund for 2022 economic growth. So they believe that next year the global economy will grow 4.9%. The U.S. economy, for the middle of the slide, will grow 5.2%. I just don't think we'll get to 5.2% because I don't think the supply side is ready to supply enough to get us to 5.2%. The demand is there, but the supply chain disruptions continue. And in fact, in the short term, it's getting worse before they get better. So for an economy to flourish, both demand and supply sides of the economy must participate. The Biden administration might get some further stimulus done. We'll see what Joe Manchin has to think about it, and Kirsten Sinema of Arizona, those two senators. But demand will probably get a further boost, but supply continues to be constrained by many factors, and not just America. These are global supply chain issues. The result is that the U.S. savings rate remains quite elevated in the short term, and that continues to spring-load the economy for rapid economic growth once vaccines become more broadly available globally. Vaccine programs have scarcely begun in certain countries, as you know, and these are global supply chain issues. The back half of 2021 should have been spectacular for economic growth. I've been saying that all year round. I was wrong. And I was made wrong by the Delta variant, which extended these supply chain disruptions and resulted in some suppressing of demand expression. The fourth quarter will still be strong, I think, because it's the holiday shopping season, but I'm very worried that we're going to see another surge in viral outbreaks as we head through November and into December, colder weather, and it's exactly what's been observed in the United Kingdom. And there will be a day of reckoning one day as deficit hawks come back into fashion, deficit hawks, meaning people who watch the U.S. bond market. We have amassed a massive national debt, no free lunch, and I think at some point in the future, this will turn into a crisis for our country. It's not 2022 story, I don't think, but it's something to think about if you're Charles County or any other community in America. With that, Sandy, I turn it back over to you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today. Sandy and everyone else, it has been a privilege. Am I by myself? Am I all by myself at this point? Yes. Yes. Oh, no, there are people there.
You are not by yourself. You've got a room
I'm very
here.
alone for a second there. It's like the beginning of that zombie show that I used to watch on TV. Anyway, are there any questions here?
Yes, we have a lady over here with a question.
Very good.
Quick question. You mentioned the declining currency, the US dollar, it seems declining, and the $1 trillion deficit. What is your, I guess, opinion, not necessarily statistics, but opinion on the move to cryptocurrency and the real estate market, retail, and businesses moving to cryptocurrency to possibly avoid the current deficit?
Panama, did you get that?
Yes, I did. A great question, fantastic question. So, again, part of the backdrop of that question is the national debt and the concern about a debt crisis. When that debt crisis occurs, we Americans will have three choices. We can raise taxes, we can cut spending, or we can print money. And my guess is the Americans will print money to deal with any debt crisis, to pay down that debt. So what that does is, of course, it increases money supply, but it also devalues the currency. So you might remember the dot-com boom in the late 1990s. The dot-com boom in the late 1990s was driven by optimism. It was technology can do no wrong. We want to be in tech. We want to be part of this future. This future is getting better. It's 1990s. A lot of bad things have yet to happen. This current wave of investment into cryptocurrencies, the Bitcoin ETF is up today, for instance, but just another day in America, but cryptocurrencies generally have been on the rise, is actually part of something that's more dystopian. The view is that the global financial structure is going to collapse one day. And before that happens, I need to find a new form of wealth, a new form of currency. And that's why so many people are piling into cryptocurrencies. It's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons. It relates to not optimism for the future, but deep pessimism. And some of that relates to the national debt. So that's what you see. And, you know, I don't know why cryptocurrencies are so valuable, by the way. Most economists don't. But if you ask me the question, Anirban, do you have a Coinbase account? Oh, you betcha. Do you buy Bitcoin? I do. Ethereum? Litecoin? Yes, I do. Ox, Red, Stellar Lumens? I buy those too. Cosmos? Absolutely. So I've been buying, cryptocurrencies because, often financial advisors say, well, buy what you understand. Why would I do that? I understand so little. So if you want a diversified portfolio, you buy what you know and what you don't know. And I don't understand why cryptocurrency is so valuable, but it is right now, and it's becoming more mainstream. So I've been investing. So it's part of, I think, a diversified portfolio. By the way, Bitcoin right now is at $64,149. It's up $3,000 today.
Okay, we have another question over here.
I've heard that the Fed is going to keep the interest rates down through 23. Have you heard that as well? And then the second part of my question, you said the day of reckoning is going to be coming. They could do, one of three things. Do you think that day of reckoning is going to be 2022 or 2023?
Right. So, the first question is about interest rates and Federal Reserve policy. So the talk, of course, around town has been about tapering. I think the Federal Reserve understands that they need to restore some credibility for themselves as an inflation fighter. So they've continued to increase money supply, and this inflation no longer appears so transitory, especially the wage inflation we've been observing recently, but also the increases in rents and some other things that don't really relate to the global supply chain. So, I think tapering begins next year. So they stop buying as many bonds, collateralized mortgage-backed securities, and U.S. Treasuries, and slow down money supply growth. And eventually, at some point, I would think late 2022 or early 2023, actually start increasing short-term rates. Now, of course, they don't control directly many of the interest rates at which we transact. In fact, they don't. They don't control the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. They don't impact a lot of other long-term interest rates, at least not directly. They influence them, but they don't necessarily shape them precisely. So I would think that next year you're going to see generally a rise in interest rates even before the Federal Reserve begins to get aggressive on monetary tightening. But with respect to the national debt and the crisis, when might that come? I don't think it's going to happen in 2022. I don't think it's going to happen in 2023, but I'm speculating here, of course. But in 2026, the Medicare Trust Fund goes insolvent. And in 2033, according to the most recent trustees report, the Social Security Trust Fund goes insolvent. And you'll talk to many economists who think that around the year 2030, there will be a financial crisis in America. Now, it's guesswork. These are guesstimates. But at some point in our future, we will have a bond market revolt. The bond market's going to wake up and say, you know what, we don't know that your Americans are good for it. We don't know that you have the demographics and the economic strength, the commitment to infrastructure and education that you need to actually grow fast enough to pay this down. And so we think you're going to devalue the currency one day. And so we're going to charge you higher interest rates because we feel that this environment is getting riskier and riskier and riskier. That will increase debt service and that will swallow up the federal budget. That's the risk. But I don't think it's an immediate issue, not based on the bond market. Today, the 10-year Treasury yield is 1.535% as I'm speaking to you. And that's well below inflation. So lots of people out there willing to hold and purchase U.S. Treasuries right now with all this liquidity. But at some point in the future, the calculus will change, and that's where the crisis will come. But again, your guess is as good as mine when that will be.
Anirban, thank you very much. How about another round of applause for Anirban Basu?
And for you, thank you.
It is now my pleasure to introduce a lady that I'm so excited to introduce. She's going to wrap it up for us today. I met Kelly Slagle almost 20 years ago when I started in economic development, and I've known her for 20 years. We have collaborated on a number of projects throughout Southern Maryland, and I am just thrilled, absolutely thrilled to say that Kelly Slagle is going to be the new director of Charles County Economic Development, and I'm going to get to work with her directly. So to wrap it up, here's our new director, Kelly Slagle.
Thank you, and thank you, Honorabon, if you're still on. I've had the delight to listen to him give his presentation over the last several years, and they're always enlightening and entertaining, and he really breaks it down. He certainly has given us a lot to think about moving towards the future, so thank you, Honorabon, for that. I also wanted to take, I know Commissioner Bowling had already acknowledged the economic development team, but if we can give one more round of applause for a fantastic hybrid event today, that in of itself is a big feat. So Sandy and Michelle and the rest of the crew, I really appreciate that. Let me say, I am so excited to be coming home. So thank you to those of you that have reached out to me personally and professionally over the last couple of weeks since the announcement. It really has been very special to me and has really reinforced that I have made the right decision to come back home here. I am born and raised in Charles County, 7th generation, so been around a long time. I'm also the daughter and the granddaughter of small business owners, so I do bring that perspective to this position as well. And what an exciting time to come to Charles County. As you've heard throughout the day today, your local elected officials and community leaders, along with the economic development team, have been working really hard over the last couple of months to develop and deploy supportive services to our existing business community, as well as to offer new opportunities for businesses and industry to come locate here. That does not happen in a silo. Those that have worked with me and have known me for years, you've heard me say it, and I will continue to say it. Economic development is a team sport. So for folks that are in the audience here, if you're a part of, or you are an existing business community, or excuse me, if you are an existing business owner, please raise your hand so I can see you. If you are a federal, state, or local municipal leader, if you could raise your hand so I can see you. If you're one of our valuable business resource partners, the MAC, CSM, Chamber, Maryland Department of Commerce, Dollar, I know some of those folks are online. Please raise your hand so I can see you. Real estate and development community, I know there's some folks over there that are a part of that. Fellow county departments, I sat right behind some of those folks. And then, of course, our citizens and supporters. Welcome to Team Charles County. Thank you. I look forward to rolling my sleeves up and working alongside of you to make things happen in Charles County. I come from a team background. So you're hearing it from me. I don't even officially start till November 15th, but you're hearing it from me. And I am looking to have all of you as a part of our team to make things happen in Charles County moving forward. Working together, no doubt, we'll be able to open many doors, and that has definitely been our theme today. I look forward to it. I would be remiss. My one assignment was to remind folks here in the room, as well as folks online, to make sure that you fill out your survey. So please do that. We do take that information very seriously, and we want to make sure that we're providing you with the most effective and relevant information when we do our events and activities. So please do that for me. With that, I want to say thank you all for attending. My official day is November 15th. Open door policy. I don't have my official cell phone number yet, but I do know my email address, and hopefully it is active or will be soon. So please write this down. It's Slagle, SLAGLE. KR at meetcharlescounty.com. And I do look forward to meeting and working with each and every one of you in the room and those folks that are online. So in the words of my high school principal, W. Cecil Short, make it a good day. Thank you.